Hello, this is Lisa Lee and welcome to my channel. We're gonna do a pick a card reading today. And I was bumbling around my house and the phrase, who is for you and who is against you, kept on popping into my head. And I kept on going like, I don't care, what? And I think that with the womb here popping out, this is about fertility. Because I was looking at that phrase and I was kind of joking with I was in prayer form with my God, and I was joking with my God, and I said, I don't care who's for, like, I don't care, and what the answer that I got was, it matters because it's not about, this is an important lesson, like, overall, because it's not about, like, enemies. When we're looking at life as being those people who love us and like us and are around us and like give us life, and those people who shut us down and reject us and tell us that they have no room for us in our life. All the ways that this incredibly painful field of realities exists together. What we are so tempted to do is make like the rejections, which are often not rejections in any way, shape, or form. Like, I want to kind of get into like the nuts and bolts of rejection, because I think we can have a lot of power over it when we do that. But when we think of people as for us if they love us, and against us if for some reason they don't, then life becomes a very dangerous place to feel emotionally safe in any way, shape, or form. With love, how are you going to feel safe with love if the people who don't love you are against you? That's a high bar, and that's putting a lot of pressure on what it means to be loved or not loved. And even like what qualifies as love and how much and where. And so with the mirror, the anima mundi, and the womb, and the bottom of the deck energy being the father and the mountain, we're going to talk a little bit about like what divine masculine energy is and what it means in terms of like your own mountain to climb, first of all, but your own safety within that mountain. And so I'm connecting to the energy of like the God that I'm working with, and this God does not have a name right now, and that's okay, sometimes it happens. I'm connecting with the God that I'm working with, and we are talking about who's for you and is against you, who's for you and who is against you, as being like a term that we're going to deconstruct. And instead of who's for you and who is against you, it's who is meant to be in your life and is meant to be in the person that is present and does the things and has the relationship and connects deeply and works with you and moves with you and shares your life with you, and who is not meant to be in your life. And so when we think about the people who are not meant to be in your life as signaling that they're not meant to be in your life very clearly by actions that you deem like not in alignment with what it feels like to be loved, then we accept that and we move towards what it means to be loved and how to receive what it means to be loved. And we don't let somebody sorting themselves out of our life because they're not loving us the way that we want to be loved have a personal referendum that shuts down avenues of creativity, avenues of expression, avenues of hope, avenues of spirituality. Because with the mountain and the father here, we have a problem with divine masculine energy right now, as a topic, as a philosophy, and in like even what it means to connect to it in any meaningful way. And I've just felt a hand on my back, like an energy that this God kind of put a hand on my back, like, it's okay. There's nothing to be afraid of, kid. Embrace the poo storms. When you're in a dark place, don't think you've been left buried 6 feet under from all of life's doo-doo. You're just germinating. Let it be known that you are a warrior seed, and you will grow through any poo that gets thrown on you or you find yourself buried under. Nobody likes poo, but it's the fertilizer filled with the nutrients that will make you grow. That's a cool little card. And I think that like this is sort of what we're going to be talking about in terms of Father is going to be an energy that is like there to guide us. Father is going to be an energy that is there to love us in a responsible and a mature way. Help us mature. Like there's a way in which we have the divine feminine aspect of God. That's the all. That's dealing with everything and everyone. That is community. The divine masculine aspect of God, though, is the individual aspect. It's the agency. Agency is like the best way of putting it, but it's also like what defends you. It's also what gets things done for you. It's what protects your borders. It stewards your sovereignty. And the mountain there is the way that it's simultaneously like, what is life on life's terms? What is the mountain that you personally have to climb, and what does it mean to reckon with it? And it's also a safe harbor. It's a place where like there's nothing that can really hurt you. Like you are safe in an unshakable place, because the father energy is also something that keeps you safe no matter what. And these archetypes are a big part of who you are. You have both the divine masculine aspect, the part of you that is like, don't you ever trespass me, you know? And then you have the divine feminine aspect that is vulnerable and nurturing and open and receiving. And then we have a balance in terms of negotiating like how you give access to others. And we have a balance in terms of what it means to gain access to others. And so when we're looking at this pick a card reading, which is kind of what I was thinking it would be, but I'm going to do it in chapters instead. And we're going to have like totally transparent cards here. Because I just shuffled that way. And that's how it came out. With the womb card here, we're going to have pile number 1, just so that we can have some sort of sense of organization with this reading. We're going to have pile number 1 is going to be the womb. And so the womb is the seed, it's the potential, it's also the divine feminine aspect of God. It's the part that takes the inspiration and says, yes, I will nurture your life. I will give you life, I will nurture your life. And so when we think about love and what it means to have love in our life that is giving us life and nurturing us, that is in relationship to something external to us where there is an ask and a receive. And it's being in a place that is receptive to like receiving this is a very special and a very sacred thing. And you actually have to be in a place to receive this. When someone comes into your life and they say, I want you to nurture my life and make life with me and create life with me, the person who would be doing that nurturing and that co-creating would have to be willing, would have to knowingly agree in every single way. It's like the choice, it's pro-choice, right? And so I see the womb here as being, you know, when it comes to what it is to give and receive love and to have the right kind of love in your life, to like right out the gate, is to first understand that, ask yourself if you are in a place, are you in a place, really, really in a place where you can receive an inspiration, another energy into your space and nurture that life and hold that life and give life and create life with it? Because you might not be, or you are, and that's something that you need to be clear about with the universe, because you've built up enough, you've healed enough, you know who you are enough, and you're ready to receive new life. And so when we think about the tower here, and I felt that while I was like, what is this? You know, that's a sacred thing, being ready to be impregnated, basically, whether it is by a project or it is by a relationship or it is by any number of things. And we can kind of like be in this dance with this type of possibility. And there's all sorts of reasons why that hope can be aborted. And there's all sorts of reasons why it can live. But when it comes to partnership and what it is to engage with partnership at a level that is sacred, we do have to look at something in the way of the divine feminine aspect and the divine masculine aspect in relationship to a type of submission that is not weak and that is not like less, and a type of dominance and inspiration and holding, and a relationship to submission and dominance that might be a little bit sneaky. And there might be a lot of dashed hopes and feelings like you aren't loved and there isn't love because of something that is going wrong at the axis of, this is what I want to do and I'm not being received, or this is what I want and I don't want to receive that, over and over and over again. And everybody's in a different place with this. And so there's a cause to like put down armor when we begin to approach what it is to be realistic about the alchemical process of romantic love and what is and isn't working with this tower card here. So that's going to be pile number 1. All right. That's going to be pile number 1. And we're talking about this from we're trying to get balance with the divine masculine energy of I want versus the divine feminine energy of I receive. Because often I want is not met by the type of I receive that we are expecting. Sometimes what I receive means is temporary, right? Or sometimes what I receive means is like outsized or undersized. And so the mirror here is going to be pile number 2 in relationship to self. So this is in relationship to relationship, and then this is in relationship to self. So let's look at in relationship to self with pile number 2 here. And you can kind of pick up wherever you feel comfortable. Let's see in relationship to self with pile number 2. And we're going to do scenarios. We're going to look at actual people and how people are peopling in the different piles. We've got an 8 of Pentacles and we've got a King of Swords. And so with the 8 of Pentacles and the King of Swords with Justice on the bottom of the deck, Justice is going to speak to this, like I hear divine appointment. Justice speaks to divine appointment. Who are you supposed to be? There's a lot of work in figuring out who you're supposed to be, and there's a lot of decision making at like a cognitive level. Like the King of Swords is like the king of consciousness. So the king of consciousness is not necessarily connected to sentience, and it's not necessarily connected to soul. So soul and sentience is a type of consciousness. It's a type of, like, sentience is its own form, and sentience is of the earth. Every animal has sentience. Sentience is a primal worldview. But the King of Swords is more of consciousness, and consciousness is more along the lines of spirit. Consciousness is more along the lines of the divine masculine, like individual, the agency, the plan, the architect of the archetypes. And that's sort of the divine masculine aspect of God. And so when we think about the mirror and we think about who you are and who you are becoming and who you are deciding to present yourself as and what it means to be in purpose and to be part of the architecture that is in alignment with whatever that plan is, because we have a as above and we have it as within, and both those things in communication make this holy union between the divine feminine aspect, receiving information that we have to work with, receiving inspiration that we turn into action and agency. But that reception is in resonance or out of resonance at the level of soul, at the level of the soul's sentience. And so this is a kind of like language and translation process in terms of like building a sense of self and bringing justice to what it means to live your life in divine appointment. Everyone has a purpose. Every bug in the ecosystem has a job. The bee does not know that its job is pollinating the earth. The bee just knows it likes the flower. It just knows desire. And so you have a divine appointment in relationship to desire. That means you don't give up on desire because it tells you who you are. But it doesn't tell you who you are by permission with the divine masculine aspect of anybody but you, in terms of how you see yourself and how you see things and how you appreciate and work with agency and desire in a way that is action oriented. I want is a very different place than I receive, right? So pile number 1 is I receive. Pile number 2 is I want. And then Anima Mundi, this is the whole mix. This is the enchilada, right? And so let me just get some water. And let me be kind enough to like look into the viewfinder and not drive people crazy by having things completely out of sync here. Okay, perfect, right? We're good. Fantastic. All right, now let's do Anima Mundi. This is pile number 3. Pile number 3 is the Anima Mundi. That is the all, and that's an easy one. I'm going to tell you the easiest. I'm going to give you the best get out of jail free card. If you don't already know this, let me tell you, this is one of the best secrets. This is one of the best secrets of all the magic-y magics and the great magic as well. Want to hear the great secret of the great magic? Are you ready for the mystery unveiled? Let's get a couple cards before I tell you. So the Anima Mundi is... Let's just get a couple cards because I want to see how this God wants to express. Where do we want to come in with the greatest of great, of the secret of all secrets? With the 3 of Pentacles and the Queen of Swords. I like it. I like it a lot. All right, let's do it. Look at the bottom of the deck energy being about deception. This is a good one. This is good. So I like pile number 3. Those of you that end up choosing pile number 3, or are at the level 3. I think this is level 1, level 2, level 3. Those of you that are level 3, starting with level 3, you're my kind of people. All right, let's just talk about what this pile number 3 is looking like. Pile number 3 is talking about Anima Mundi. So what is that? You have a body. right? You're in a body, you walk around, you're a body. The body is a contained situation. There's skin on it, and then it's inside of it is an inside, and it's contained, and your organs don't fall outside because they're contained within the whole. And if you look at pictures of the universe and you look at pictures from within inside of the body, there's some really magnificent similarities there. Because what you're going to find out is within you is an entire universe. Within your DNA is an entire Akashic record. And that Akashic record, as it expresses through your DNA, is a part of like a beautiful magic system of communication from divine energies and the sentience that operates within you, as it relates to the stories that those traits ignite an activation around the story that you find yourself in that is analogous to a story of your ancestor who found themselves in a similar position, and then that trait evolves through that story as you express through it. And so like this is a universe that is within you. And so you are at the same time one person walking around. You got a name, you have a driver's license probably. If not, you have a birth certificate probably, and if not, you probably have a shoe size, right? You are a you, and that you ends up being the author in a certain kind of way. You're not the complete author because there's a lot that influences you, but you have the perspective. You get to do the perspective. You get to like set the aperture and where the focus is, and you get to move in directions like based on what story you want to experience. And you don't even know these stories that you're calling in half the time, because that's where we come in at desire, right? So when we think about this anima mundi as being an expression or an understanding of yourself that is, you are simultaneously one energy, one kind of person, and also the expression of every Akashic record of every ancestor that contained a trait that you now embody as you move through the world. So this is an important thing to understand, because once you understand that, you can unlock the key to a door that leads you into the next room. And that next room, that's going to tell you something even better. The next room is going to tell you that in the same way you are a part of one, but also many, right? You are one person, but you also are many. You're many cells, you're many organs, you're one and many. You're one little thing inside you. There's one thing and you are many. You are part of the many, right? And I think I just lost you there. But basically what I'm trying to explain is when people say everyone is you and you are everyone and all is God, what they mean is we're all part of a universe where we are sharing a consciousness. And we're also sharing a sentience. And we are in an individual space in the body as we kind of form forms, and that expands all of it. But being mad at somebody who denies you access to themselves and having a sense of separation and anger because someone believes something that you feel devalues you, that's not taking into account that that's just a person who's not where you are. When someone is mean to you, that's just not taking into account that that is a person that is you, but just having a really bad day and being at the tail end of everybody mean to them and bad news. When we have these platitudes of separation, where our experience is prioritized over the experience of others at the level of our judgment of they are good or bad because they serve us or they don't serve us, we're kind of losing the plot. And so that anima mundi here with Three of Pentacles, building a cathedral that contains life and in a way that nourishes it. It's like the cathedral is like the antithesis of like the cold structure of the that's a very strange thing that sometimes I can't even speak the word. What the hell is that? I'm looking at the god. He was saying like it's similar and it's not quite the same. Hierophant, kind of stopping me. And so this is a male energy, this god. And so this god being the god of consciousness with the King of Swords, and that counterpart, the divine feminine aspect of consciousness. And there is a difference in the way those two things operate, and there's a way in which they operate together, but they're the architects of the archetypes. They build the Three of Pentacles, the cathedral that we're all in, the body of the whole, the consciousness of the whole, as it responds to all that is within it. And so when we have a sense of like we are either a part of the health of the whole or a part of what's making the whole sick. What makes the whole sick? Cancer, the cell that like wants to be its own thing and it's not going to get along with the other cells in the liver, because the story that it's in, that it's not being appreciated. You know what I mean? Like this is the way that we kind of like have to parse this out. And so, the first thing we have is like, the desire and relationships and this balance between I want and I receive. And getting that right is a million times a battle. And then those opportunities or lack those opportunities giving us some sense of self that in the Seven of Swords aspect means like you're not being honest with yourself about what's really going on. You're weaving stories. and so with that mirror, let's look at what's really going on. What's really going on. And so we have pile number 1, pile number 2, and pile number 3. And we're already 20 minutes in. And so this is obviously going to be quite a series. Damn. How am I going to break this up in terms of like people can watch it easily? Let's just keep going. Hello, this is Lisa Lee, and welcome to pile number 1. Now, this pick a card is much more organized, like chapters, than it is like pick a card. The way that the first part came through was so long and involved that I'm just kind of looking at like what do you want to work on? And so, pile number 1, those of you who feel that you really need to work on, with the womb and the tower, like miscarriages and abortions, with the heart. In relationship to the heart, in relationship to wanting to create things with others, wanting to create in the world, and also what it means to receive or not receive. So this is a whole section that is going to be a little bit of where we're facing things like limerence, and we're facing things like hope, and we're facing things like ideals and disappointments and all the stuff that has to do with things you wanted to create, things you wanted to have in this life, that you wanted to bring life to, that there is a tower around. So I want to get some cards where we actually look at the situation from like a personal view. So let's get into it with energies here. And we're connecting with that divine masculine aspect of God with the Father and the mountain. And that's not the patriarchy. That's not the same thing as the patriarchy. That's a part of you. That's the part of you that says, I want it, I'm going to get it. I want it, I'm going to do these things, and it's going to result in this. This is where I have my heart set, and I'm going to believe into it, and I'm going to put energy into it, and it's going to bloom. That's the divine masculine energy of agency. There is some aspect of like having a target and going for it, and that's very similar to like acquisition. And in some ways it's the same, but I think when it comes to matters of creating life with others, that takes on a whole new view in this topic right here, where what it means, like the womb space is that receptive, you are welcome into my heart, you are welcome into my life, we can create a life together. That is a very sacred thing. And when it comes to people accepting or rejecting proposals related to that level of sacred interaction, there's no such thing as rejection. There is just, you're meant to be here or you're not meant to be here. And those terms are not set by you. And so why this interferes with our divine masculine energy of I want that and I'm going to get it, is because in some ways, romantic love as it's set up in the world that we're in has to do with a relationship between the divine feminine aspect of love and eros and reception and yes, create with me, I love you, and the divine masculine energy that is I want this and I'm going to inseminate, I'm going to inspire, I'm going to move into this space and we're going to create a life together. When that doesn't work out, when someone says absolutely not, that's not what I was thinking, that's not what I wanted, and you're in a different place, it can damn your sense of your ability to attain the things that you most desire. And when it does happen, there's a delicate balance there, and there's a lot of like activity back and forth related to like what it means to be in a receiving place. That is a submission that is associated with the divine feminine aspect of God. Submission is not less than, but dominance and submission actually exist in nature very prominently. They exist within ourselves very prominently, and they exist in relationships very prominently. And so we have to understand that like when it comes to wanting to receive and wanting to be in the place where someone wants you, desires you, wants to create that way with you, that's a whole different picture where you have to be in a position where you accept. And you know what it's like when someone has a desire for you and you don't accept. It can feel like a violation even to perceive that when you weren't expecting it. And so from a point of view that says you understand what it is to not want somebody who you haven't consented and don't desire to desire that with you, and having that be a firm boundary that doesn't have anything to do with rejection. Sometimes it has some relationship to rejection, but at a soul level, at a soul resonance level, when you are accepted or barred of entry in this way, it is so sacred that there's no such thing as rejection. And so when you have stories of powerlessness and rejection around people either like deciding yes, build a life with me, or deciding no, don't build a life for me, or saying yes, but then it's a trick and you're captured and you're abused, or saying no and it feels unfair. Like there's all sorts of stuff that comes up with that, all sorts of stories about ourselves that come up with that, where there is a lot of heartbreak with the Tower here in terms of like aborted hopes or miscarried dreams. That's a lot of grief, that's a lot of anguish, and that can bring you into a sense of powerlessness, but it doesn't have to. Because what those miscarried opportunities are, or those aborted, and to me, I'm seeing miscarriage and abortion two sides of the same coin. Somebody knows that life is not for them, that's not going to actually be. And no matter what the desire is, like on one end of it or the other end of it, it's a non-starter. And there's a reason for these things, because this is sacred, this is miraculous. When new life takes form, it is a miracle. And if it doesn't take form, it is not meant to be. And so when we take that very hard line, I can feel some people getting mad and being like, well, no one ever lets me in, I never get to have that. There might be anger around that, and there might be a long line of miscarried hopes and dreams, of aborted and dashed efforts. Lots of investment going into things that would not hold because there was not the cooperation with others. That can be a place of anger, but when it comes to something like taking space in somebody's life and making life with them, there has to be consent, or there's something wrong with the approach. There's something wrong with the divine masculine energy that says, I'm entitled to this with someone else, and if they don't let me have it, there's vengeance. There's something wrong with that. So you have to sit with that. When it comes down to thinking about what your opportunities and where your power is, when it comes to love and having that desire, the desire is good. Having someone to create a life with, that's something that's very important. Having a miscarried experience or an aborted experience, there's lots of grief, there's lots of tower, there's lots of feelings of I'm not going to be fertile. There isn't going to be a fertile life. There's not going to be a life that makes life. There's not going to be sunshine on this flower that lets it bloom. Let's get into that, because that's not necessarily true. That becomes true when we damn ourselves so completely around the divine masculine of energy of like, I wanted that and I deserve that and I didn't get that. And the divine feminine energy of I was making a home for this, and that inspiration, that insemination didn't actually create life with me. They didn't choose to make life with me. I wanted that. I was open for this, but they weren't. And so let's take a look at that, because nothing can be forced. And when we recognize that nothing can be forced, we can be at peace. And we can also think about what it means to desire away from force, agency away from acquisition. And so let's go ahead and get some cards on like the situational aspects of this pile with the womb card here. Because these are hard truths, but if we don't accept these hard truths, we will have the door closed over and over again, and we will not be rerouted to the right place. We will be shut down. And so that's why we look at this honestly, and that can be really difficult. The World card in reverse, that's almost like that's the same energy as the womb. The Ace of Cups, that's love, okay? There's a difference between somebody like being available for love for a period of time. There's a difference between somebody being available for a type of love that goes only so far. There's lots of ways in which love manifests itself, even outside of like a romantic entanglement. And where people are with what they want to offer in love is very different than somebody who wants to create life with you. And creating life with you is not a project that you do once. It's not even a project that you entertain doing. It's not even a project that you agree to do. This is letting somebody in your actual life, letting them into your actual heart. And when that's somebody's hope, it doesn't matter what you like are available for, it's still going to mess up around like this difference in communication related to like what's on offer and what is not on offer. And so a really big part of what it means to be accepted into someone's heart and into someone's life and to create with them at an intimate level is first not wasting your time or being on false pursuit with energies that have something to offer, but it's not co-creation in life. So like we have to kind of look at what it means to think about investments, intensity, contracts, 8th house stuff, sex, erotic capital, secrets, mysteries, obsessions, inheritance, what's meant for you, what's not meant for you. Because that's where the Tower comes in. And there's a justice here related to that Tower coming in. And there's a justice related to that Tower coming in for you in terms of rejection is God's protection. And even though we're talking about a situation where there's no such thing as real rejection, when we talk about the high stakes of like, people aren't going to let you into their heart and their life. That's not something that you're entitled to. At the same time, what it means for you to have something on offer that you want to receive, that you want to be in line for this, that you want to resonate and be like accessible for something like this in the right way, with the person who is going to want this with you, with the person who this is right for you with. When I say that rejection is God's protection and there's justice, if you try to strong arm something based on your desire, no matter what that is, it's going to backfire and it's going to hurt you in unnameable ways, because you're not meant to be creating a territory that is not meant for you. And it's not meant for you if the person that you are looking to create with isn't meant for you. And so when we talk about like this Queen of Coins, like how do you get dominion over like your experience of life so that you are receiving, and so you are in this Queen of Coins position of being able to create of abundance and having all of the material like opportunities and having the status and the high regard and really being in that place of prominence. How do you sort of establish that for yourself, separate from what it means to create a life with somebody else? Because you're meant to establish this for yourself. A lot of what we do with romance is romance rescue without even realizing it. A lot of what the patriarchy is dominance and submission in terms of conquest and acquisition and holding. And I know that sounds kind of confusing, but like, and I'm going to try and get this right, but a lot of what we have been conditioned to in the way of light and love and connection and desire and ambition, like spiritually and socially and sexually, a lot of that has to do with proximity to power and where we perceive power to be, and wanting to be the muse of the powerful, and wanting to have the powerful need you, and that's very different, and that can be a very strong drive and a strong attraction. Now it sounds unappealing, so I'm going to bring us back into a place of reference so that we don't feel like we're being attacked. What is attraction and proximity to power? Attraction to the person at the front of the room. Attraction to somebody who has access to like genius. That's like the musician, the actor. These are different types of power. Attraction to what somebody's doing and the way that they're doing it. That's very different than attracted to the people who are at arm's length, boots on the ground, like at the ready in relationship to you, like very readily available. And there can be real problems when there's like not a real tangible relationship where you're having conversations about the give and take, what's on offer and what's not on offer, what you're comfortable with, what you're not comfortable with, how you feel, how you don't feel. When you don't have that kind of ready access to somebody, when you're wondering for any reason, it means you're not at the phase of development in the relationship where that person's open to that kind of negotiating. And so if there's no negotiation on the table, this is time for you to be working on yourself and what it means to establish yourself in your own right, so that you're in a place where what you are creating with someone is a safe place for them to create with, first of all, where it's not a black hole of need or some form. And that's going to be like a painful phrase, but we're all susceptible to that when we have romance rescue instead of I genuinely want to be relating and creating with you. And romance rescue is when you want someone to co-regulate with you. Romance rescue is when you want someone to be your person, separate from their own person that interacts with what it means to collaborate with you and like do things and make things and create things. That ownership, that we do everything together, that we are the same person, we are the same thing, we are meant for each other, you're meant for me and I'm meant for you, and ours is us. Like that's something that somebody really has to want to sign on to. And if it disgusts them and if it repels them, like that's not you've created your life in your own right. That's you're creating life in your own right with somebody else as a part of that picture. Because if you create your life in your own right and you get into this Queen of Pentacles position, then what you bring in, it's a safe place for somebody else to co-create with, because there's no demands and there's no need that if you show up, then there's an expectation that you're going to be a crutch in one way or another. You know, being addicted to people's energy happens all the time because it somehow takes you out of the situation that you don't like about your life. And you know that because when they're absent of your life, you don't like what's there and you want them back in it so that you can have that alchemy. That means that your alchemy plus their alchemy is what you like. There's an addiction to that, but now you're dependent on them to keep an alchemy that isn't you. And so when they remove that energy, now that alchemy that is you is not enough, and you're raging against the heavens, and you're raging against the gods, and you're hurting, and you're in anguish because you can't create without them, because it feels that way. Otherwise, there wouldn't be such an emotional feeling like this. And so part of what being honest about these things to ourselves is understanding where someone is playing a willing role, or where they're playing the role of a conduit that gets us to an acknowledgement about what it means for us to establish this Queen of Coins position for ourselves. Because the womb card with the Tower indicates an abortion and or a miscarriage. Why do abortions happen? Someone realized that they don't have what it takes to sustain that life, and they can't offer it. And they're not going to put their body down and offer their life in order to somehow meet that expectation. And so they walk away with something half formed. And there's some disappointment about hope that it would form, but it won't. And what is a miscarriage? It was never meant to take life. It was a hope, and there was a flicker. There was a slight quickening, there was an idea, there was a belief, but ultimately it was always meant to fail anyway. And both of those things are true. Like, it's not meant to be if it's not meant to be, if it doesn't happen. And so our ability to sort of take life on life's terms is also taking love on love's terms. And taking love on love's terms is where we receive love in a very tangible way, where it's offered, and there's justice in that. Where we try to receive love where love does not have terms that make us comfortable, there's an injustice in that whole process for you and the other person as well. And so that Queen of Coins is, again, back to like thinking about like the anguish around I've been rejected and no one's going to give me a chance, and so I'm just going to shut down and nothing's for me and I don't believe it anymore. There's a huge problem in spirituality, and there's a huge problem in romantic love, where people are sort of like wanting somebody else to manage their faith in either. And manage my faith in God. If I'm not seeing the God-like things happen in the way that I want, then there is no God, and you're the one who's supposed to manage my faith in that. And my religious belief is outsourced to a religious belief or a spirituality that takes me away from myself. We do this with religion. We also do this with romantic love. You're going to be my person, and we're going to do it together, and our life is going to be ours, and it's partnership here, and this is what I've always wanted, and you are the answer to every prayer, and only you are the answer to every prayer, because you're the only thing that I've ever seen that has made me feel like this. You're the only one that's ever known me like this. Nothing else has come close, and without you, there's no life that I can imagine with another person, because you are the closest thing to perfect for me. Not if the other person didn't sign on verbally with such an arrangement. And so if you're investing in something that there's no contract for, you can lose a lot. And that's a reality. And knowing that and having to face that is also getting better with this Eight of Pentacles. It's the work of facing the facts about what it is to create a life for yourself, is creating on a foundation that is on what you are able to like build in the way of a place of reception and fertility for yourself first. First, you have to be fertile before you can invite someone to create life with you. And that has nothing to do with a biological imperative. You have to be fertile before you can foster life. What does that mean? And so when we think about like all these rejections, and there's no hope, and there's no chance, and there's no love, and there's nothing fostering, and there's nothing making, and there's no opportunities, maybe this is time for you to become fertile, because the Queen of Coins is fertile. She can make anything she wants. She has the resources in every direction. She has relationships with the entire kingdom that she can always draw from in order to co-create solutions. But she is Ace of Cups, Justice. She's giving as much as is comfortable, because she actually even knows her worth. And her worth, and what her worth in her life, and her worth in her ideas, and her worth in her expertise, and her conversation, and her worth in her inspiration, like her worth and her value in her own time, and what it means to allocate that time, and who she's giving to and who she's not giving to, what it means to give, what she receives from that. Like, this is the Queen of Coins doing her thing, figuring out what it is to live, and even modulating, like, this is what I have to give, this is what I don't have to give. That's a Queen of Coins thing. And so what it means to, like, this womb, though, like, does, you know, there's something there. So let's get some cards here. Let's play with this and just see what agency, the divine masculine aspect of God. I want it, I need it. There's nothing else like it. There's no one else like it. That can become toxic quick if somebody is like, no, please don't do that to me. Don't trespass my boundaries. Don't build these hopes and then rage and vengeance when I don't meet your expectations, because you felt like all of these things pointed that way, but there was no expressed desire that made it true. There was hope, there was potential, but was it more than just an idea? Because it needs to take life, it needs to take hold, there needs to be an agreement. You don't get access to someone's holy of holy inner sanctum because you desire it the most. That's going to be one of the biggest and worst things that can happen. And if you think that the level to which you desire something is your worthiness of it, because there's no truth to that. Because it has to do with maturity levels, compatibility, and even a discovery process that sometimes leads in a dead end. And that, again, it can, that temperance here says, like, this isn't going to determine whether or not you're fertile. It determines, like, a lot of other things. And so when we think about, like, rejection is not real. The stakes are so high with romantic love that rejection is not real. All the stories about acquisition and holding with romantic love is taking something sacred and making it profane at the level of, I want it and I'm going to get it and I deserve it because I want it that much. And my wanting it this much looks like all of these ways that I've done things. And so now this person owes me because I made all of this space. I created these castles in the sky. I worked for it. I courted them in this way that they didn't even, maybe they realized it or maybe they didn't, but it didn't lend itself to them wanting to create a life with me. It did not lend itself to them wanting to let me into their holy of holies, their inner sanctum of their heart. They didn't want to let me in. They said no. That was never on the table. I wanted it to be. And sometimes they do let you in, and it's such a bad combination, it doesn't work so much at all, that it becomes a total miscarriage. And sometimes the abortion is more powerful than the miscarriage. When someone says, listen, I don't want to create love with you like that. I don't see you that way. I don't feel that way about you. That can hurt so bad because of all that has gone into the creating the nursery. And all of the hopes that have been collected all the way, like little stones on a path that said we were going here. This is where we were going. When we have so much invested in unspoken things in the underworld of a situation that has not come to light, that has not come to clarity, that has not been properly expressed, we can go 10 miles and even get a mile before the person who's with us says, wait a minute, you're going 10 miles. I thought we were just going right here. I'm not going with you there. My bus is going over there. My bus is not going over there. This is, a period of time and maybe 1 or 2 projects. There's nothing beyond that. Like, for someone to know that on the path and then steer and move and leave you, holding a bunch of investments and a bunch of hopes and a bunch of stones, it leaves you in a new place. And that's what it was always meant to do. But to the extent that it's a rejection where it says you're not worth anything, nobody's ever going to love you, and you can't have the thing that you want, you can't have the thing that you want when it comes to somebody else's holy of holies. You can't take someone's heart because you desire it the most. And so facing that in yourself and being like, whoa, maybe I have to do this a little bit different. Maybe I have to think about this in a different way when it comes to my emotional investments. Maybe I have to think about this in a different way when it comes to my desiring something and what it means for me to go after it. Maybe I have to value the lessons of and the direction that I've arrived at because it gave me all of the stuff that I didn't have before. But then I have to also accept that I am not entitled to someone's heart and to their womb just because I want it. And I am not capable of demanding someone else's inspiration, insemination, and caretaking of me just because I made myself ready and available. These are the hardest truths that you're going to face, but it's on the road to what it means to be a queen of coins. A queen of coins faces those truths, understands those truths, and does not falsely invest herself, knowing her value and what she has to offer to the person that she is going to be in relationship with. Belief that there is a relationship. There are creations, there are pregnancies that go to full term everywhere. And I'm talking about art projects. I'm not even talking about babies. But I am also talking about babies. Because this is a romance. The romance of life is creating things with others and being appreciated and having that element of worship that is natural, not hierarchical, that you don't just demand and get, that someone has to actually willingly give you. And if you feel like someone has worshipped you with their attention, they've given you their attention, the Queen of Cups and the Justice says, well, what you believe is that might not be what that person is doing unless you've had that conversation. Because maybe they're just curious. Maybe they're exploring something in themselves and you happen to be part of that exploration. Maybe you're a discovery that leads only so far. And that may hurt so much, but only if you have designs upon someone else's life that your life is built on them participating in. Because that consent is incredibly important. And we miss the whole point of consent when we think it just relates to sexual desire. Because consent has to do with friendship only so far. You know what I mean? It has to do with opportunities to get close, opportunities to create together. And so we have to think about what this tower really means when we think about our options, our opportunities, who we are, what is for us, what is not for us, what it means to offer that womb space, what it means to receive in that womb space, and what it means to offer that desire, that inspiration, and a request for access to create with someone in that way. Because if we have it on the table clearly and we understand really what it is, and we're moving from that Queen of Coins position, then we can have it all. And with the right people, and who is for you and who is meant for you, and not a false investment and what is never meant for you, but you desired and you wanted, and so you should have had it. Because those drives and those desires, again, the people that we want are at arm's length. In terms of like, you were born to an ecosystem. Within that ecosystem is everything that you were purposed for, and you were meant for those things that you can reach, those people that you can reach. And arm's length is generally going to be that people who are boots on the ground, you're able to go next door and ask them if you can borrow a cup of sugar. Those are going to be the people that you're meant to meet and work with and interact with. And if you're on a solo journey and you're on a solo mission, which many people are right now, that's okay. That tells you where you're supposed to be. That's not a referendum against your lovability. And so that's where the Seven of Swords comes in, and that Six of Cups comes in, and this Seven of Cups come in, and this Two of Cups with this Page of Pentacles, and this is going to be union. This is even going to be marriage with the Four of Wands. And so your bottom of the deck is a Queen of Cups, and you can see this Queen of Cups. Like, this Queen of Cups seems like there's an agony and there's an anguish about nobody's letting me in. Nobody wants to create with me. I am rejected. I am always rejected. And that's not everyone, but like, this is kind of where a miscarriage of hope ends up being, with the World in reverse and the womb and the Tower. I mean, like, these cards together mean just that. And so when the God says, you know, your agency, your divine masculine energy is messed up when there is agency, but also entitlement. And that can be painful. The Queen of Cups can be in anguish because she loved something so much and she wanted something so much. The Queen of Cups could have like built her whole hopes on this idea that she was going to create with this other person. And that Tower might be something that really, those arrows are through the heart. And now there can be no hope for a new chapter, no hope for a new direction. There is a blind, like, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. And so when we think about this temperance over the Seven of Cups, like, you know, this is where you want to get a hold of yourself in terms of what's your maturity level. What can you work with in terms of maturity level to get yourself to that Queen of Coins? Because Queen of Coins is the door to having something. Like, I want to be really careful about the way that I say this, because value, as we understand it, has been wildly misappropriated to meeting benchmarks of health, of beauty, of money and wealth, and that's not what I'm talking about. The Queen of Cups is a value because she knows her value. I'm not talking about meeting the benchmarks. She has something to offer. What she has to offer is not to be this role to somebody else. What she has to offer is what she's built. Not, I offer you, I'm going to be a role in your life. And it's going to look like this. And I'm going to dress it up in all these different ways. And then you're really going to appreciate it. And I'm finally going to have arrived because the person I appreciate appreciates me. That's very different than, here's what I've made and I've made it for me and it's beautiful. And if you want to interact with this, like, what does that mean? We'll talk about it. Like, if you want to create with me, I'm already established. I don't need you. When your energy is gone, my life is fine. You can take it or leave it. Now, is that an attachment problem? This is where divine masculine energy can get really toxic. The alchemy of who you are with this Temperance card means that the energy that you are just by yourself in your own little bubble of energy, your own energetic field, when someone enters that energetic field, it adds to it. And there's something that comes in and it gives you stuff to work with, stuff to think about. You really enjoy it. When they exit that energetic field, it's not rejection. It's time for you to integrate what you learned and move into a place of more of you with that influence. But if you're in a situation where your energetic field is not complete without the presence of another person, especially if it's a specific other person, and if you're unhappy in your life, and if you look at your life and you say, the alchemy of just what I am is miserable unless it adds that other essence that somebody has that now is mine, and now I love it. I love it. It feels so good. When they're gone, I don't love it. I don't love it. Let me check in with them. Let me find out. Let me have that hit of their energy today. And now I'm flying high. That's where we got to work on this temperance. Where's your center of gravity? Where's your sense of your own landscape? What does it mean for you to be creating the castle that is your own life with this Queen of Pentacles? Because we can point at everybody who doesn't want to open their womb space and let us into it, and then let us take resonance in it, and then take the portion of our life and the time related to that portion meant to building something with others because they love you and they demand it. That is not an attachment issue at the part of the person that isn't available for that. They're saying, I don't want to make a life with you. I don't want to make a baby with you. You have to respect that. For whatever reason, that's not their journey. That's not what they want to do. When you free yourself from referendums of good and evil and yes and no, and because I want it and I didn't get it, because I put in work and it didn't come true, that can be really difficult. But the superpower here with temperance and being confused about what's for us and what's not for us, what's for you is going to be there. What's not for you is going to excuse itself. Now what you're left with in the way of temperance, making something of what you're left with, getting comfortable at where you are, not craning for somebody else's attention in an attempt to right your energy, not needing someone else's influence in an attempt to establish yourself. This is all the temperance work, and it's healing work, and it's empowering work. And so when we have the Seven of Swords and the Two of Cups, this deception around what is for you and what is not for you, the toxic divine masculine energy says, I want it, and therefore I'm entitled because of all of the things I'll do to get it, and the level to which I want it, and the drive that I'll put in, and the work that I'll put in, and the behavior will equal that I'll be rewarded. That's a very wrong way of looking at it. That's not how you get intimacy, and that's not how somebody chooses to share a life with you, because you want it enough and you're going to work really hard. That is not it. What it is something completely different with the Six of Cups and this Page of Pentacles. Page of Pentacles and Six of Cups says, you're coming at this from a different vantage point than I want it so much. You're coming at this with, is this an opportunity? I'm curious to get to know who you are. Even if I have a sense of who you are, who are you to me? Who am I to you? Because that's where the dominance and submission thing gets really, really weird, especially when we're not dealing with people who are physically in our lives. Accessible at a physical level. And again, if no one is, that's okay. You're accessible at a physical level. What it means to connect with yourself and what is available to you in nature and the nature around you and your creativity. Because that curiosity with Six of Cups, that openness with Six of Cups, this is sort of back to this notion of when you meet people and there's no expectation because I'm seeing this thing, where you make a friend in school and you're say you make a friend in school and they're just going to be there. They're your friend. That's it. You're creating friendship. You're creating humor. You're creating fun. That person has to really have the same sense of humor. That person has to have more than just some intellectual, similarities. The chemistry and the alchemy has to be right. And just because somebody sees somebody else and they like that chemistry and the alchemy and they think I'm a good fit here, doesn't mean it's always a good fit. And so when you're in the schoolyard, who's a good fit and who's not, this isn't personal. And sometimes it can feel that way with bullying and feeling left out, because the World card and the Moon card and this message is really, 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 really hard for people who feel that they have never been let in to a relationship to co-create, and they have always been rejected, and that this is a referendum and this is a point of pain. That has a lot to do with what it means to receive and integrate, these spiritual functions of reception and building life, and creating life and fostering life and fertility. That's a spiritual function. It's also a spiritual function that we have no matter what, right? And so there are times when life can be so hard, when circumstances can be so difficult, when there can be things that demand our attention and demand our life and pull us out of being able to focus on what it would mean to have fertility in the arena of like a certain kind of socializing, a certain kind of romantic love. But that pushes us into an arena where we have fertility in something else. And that's what we appreciate, because we're purposed in accordance with the circumstances of our life. We're purposed in accordance of the physical locations of our life. And life on life's terms gives us life on life's terms, and it gives us love on love's terms. And when we are degrading the love that we have on love's terms that are as available for us, that is there for us, that wants to create with us, because we see something that we want and we're in that divine masculine energy of acquisition, that's when we can feel horrible, and we can hate ourselves, and we can hate the people that won't give us what we want, and we can feel like all of these false roads where we're just, there to hurt us, and it's somebody against us and something against us, and we can pine, and we can try harder, and maybe if I try harder and I take this other angle, and maybe if I present in a different way, and maybe if I'm, moderate how much I do this or that, the fact of the matter is the door closes energetically, or it opens energetically long before there's any activity or conversation. And when there is conversation and that door is open, it closes pretty fast if there were false pretenses to begin with, even if they were of the most innocent variety. And so that's why we have to be honest with ourselves about where am I in building my own life, my own strength, my own sense of what it is to have dominion over the material experience that I'm having when it comes to agency, when it comes to I desire that and I'm going to get it, because that's the Queen of Cups. And I desire that and I'm going to get it starts with things that we can do for ourselves long before it starts with what it means to negotiate with that with another human being, another sentient life. We have to be fertile in our own right before we can present ourselves to create with another. And so there's a lot of like Christian doctrine that like really messes us up around romantic love, because romantic love in its toxic and its shadow is a type of salvation no different than Jesus saving you from your life. Romantic love is going to love you enough, it's going to save you from this experience of just yourself. Because just yourself without that romantic love is not saved. That's damned. And so like, these are things that we get in our heads and get in our experience that really stand in the way of us actually getting this Ace of Cups, Justice, Four of Wands, what we are meant to have in the way of union and partnership. Because union and partnership is there for us in places where we haven't been told, nope, we're not creating together. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to be creating with myself. And then I'm going to get that fertility at the level of self established. And as I get that fertility at the level of self established, I'm creating of my own Queen of Coins, of my own substance. And then in creating of my own substance, I have something fertile now. And so with that Seven of Cups, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know who I am. I don't know what's available to me. There's nothing ever available to me. I can't do it. I'm in this anguish. All I can do is feel sunk. I'm just drowning in pain. I'm drowning in a lack of opportunity. You can't go and create with that. That's not that is not a fertile place. That for all intents and purposes, you can get comfort from that, but it is not a place. And you can even have a level of fertility on your own with grief, but grief is not fertile material for another person. And so if there's a heaviness like within you that kind of like has to be worked out with that tower, what are you building this foundation on when it comes to your hope of creating life with another? Because the tower there, especially if it's there with the Seven of Swords telling you that's it, you're not going to get what you want, this life has nothing to offer you, that's not true. You create when you breathe. You are creative and fertile by taking breath alone. You're creating the life that you live. Now, bring that into what it means to take control of your environment, Queen of Coins. Look at all the tools available for you, Queen of Coins. Create building for yourself, Queen of Coins. Become inspired by this process of making a life for yourself. Quickening in the womb, inspiration that brings fertility. That fertility makes a life for yourself, Queen of Coins. Now, what is that life for yourself that you're bringing for others? Because energetically, there's a readiness to that womb, or there's an immaturity, and nobody wants that. And it's not saying you're rejected, but a maturity level, at the level I have grown mature enough that I am building my life, and my life is built for myself, means I can support the life of another. If you have not built a life for yourself that supports your own life, you cannot support the life of another, and therefore you're not in a place to create life with another. You're only in a place to create life with yourself. You are in Queen of Coins territory, and until that Queen of Coins established foundation is there, there's a tower at every attempt at life when you haven't built a life that you already feel like is carrying you. And that's going to be that field of energy that says if somebody's there, that's wonderful. If they're not there, it's still fine. And is that an anxious attachment? I don't know. That's something you want to work with, because I can feel that levied often when we have this tendency towards limerence, obsession, and stalking. Because stalking is not just physical stalking. It's letting your mind play endless loops of you and somebody else and they're not there. A lot of times we come to the cards to bolster and assist in this daydreaming process, in this meditation that involves somebody or something that's not in our life in a tangible way. We're playing at the level of energy, which is fine. But you, as a material embodied person, have an opportunity to play at the level of the material embodied world with the Queen of Coins. And if you are always evacuating that material embodied world for dreams about people that are not physically available and have not made themselves verbally available by way of a commitment beyond just, it would be fun to work on something together, or we're friends, you know what I mean? Like, if there is no expressed opinion that way, then there should be no expectation. And so working with that is saying, wait a minute, I'm in control of my energy. And if my energy is leaking down rivers of self-abandonment that I don't even realize is self-abandonment because it feels so good to dream of another being the foundation that I live my life on, that can feel good. But it's also taking time and energy away from the justice that is you receiving the love that is meant for you and building the life with those that are going to joyfully join you in that process because they were meant to. And it feels right, and it happens at the right time in the right place, because that established life is now fertile and able to create new life. And those lessons are hard to come by. And when we get them, we become superpowered and we become really attractive, because that's that center of gravity that is that, like, wow, you know yourself, you know your worth. You're bringing that confidence of your own very refined expression that isn't in like some way where you're like, if I express in this way, somebody's going to love me in that way. So I'm going to create this whole persona. I'm going to create this whole person of myself because I know that that person appreciates these things. That will sink your ship faster than you can say, like, what's going on. And there's justice, there's an injustice in that process. You're doing injustice to yourself and passion and the passions of your life and what it means to bring from that, life from that passion. So there's two things here very much at play in this section. The first thing at play in this section is that in order to sustain new life that you were building with another, you have already had to have established that you have built a life for yourself. Now, modern world dynamics and all of the systems tell you you built life with others. You built life with others from a very different place than like if you build your life for yourself first. And when I say you build your life for yourself, I'm not talking about like a business partnership. I am talking about you are not looking to others to complete you in any meaningful way. You're not looking for a romance rescue. You're already rescued. If you have a romance, that's good. That's healthy. If you're looking for a romance rescue, that's an exchange. I will give you my romance. I will open myself up to you. I will serve you with my willingness and my worship. But you have to rescue me from the situation. You have to rescue me from myself. And so when are you going to have that agency? I want this. I'm going to have it. It's mine. I get to have it. With that, this is the divine masculine energy. Agency does not go hand in hand with hard work equals entitlement and expectation. Agency goes with, I know who I am, I know what I want, and anybody who is in alignment with that is going to join that, and everybody who's not is not getting anywhere with where I'm going and what I'm doing. And I'm going to invest in what feels in resonance, and I'm not going to invest in what does not. And so that equal yoking has everything to do with energy and almost nothing to do with behavior. And so where you get your energy right is where you are now open to the opportunity. Where you get your energy right with sustaining your own life and working with the opportunities and the options that are before you, and the emotional intelligence that goes to sort of taming desire around like actually being able to hold and gestate and sustain and create life with another. You first have to be able to learn how to do it with yourself. And that can be weird with the womb there, because the womb gets inseminated by inspiration that you create your life with. So there's always things coming in for you to create life with. But you can't like set your sights on one person. You can't set your sights on one thing without literally leaking out your entire life force and messing up the trajectory of what it is to even be receptive in the right way. And so it's not these patterns of destruction against you. It's that we don't learn how to do this right and we constantly fail. And so with the Six of Cups being about, you know, this injustice, with the Seven of Swords, this deception with yourself about the role you're playing in either being in the right place to receive or the wrong place to receive. Because the right place to receive, you know, it means that you can sustain life on your own. You can sustain the life that wants to happen through you. And sometimes we think that we want something and then it blows up in our face because no life can be sustained. The relationship can't be sustained. And the divine masculine energy, you know, and the divine feminine energy, when there's an entrapment going on, they'll blow up. It'll become violent half the time when it's not meant to be wrangled into this sort of dominance and submission situation. Because dominance and submission can happen physically. It can happen in agreement. It can happen where one person, it wants to take dominance by seeming submissive, but holding a whole world of information back. And in that withholding of information, matriculating and being strategic and going at something in a certain way, so that one person is in one place and the other person, while they may, you know, like I'm seeing this really weird dynamic where one person is just doing their own thing, they're engaging, and another person has a whole world of stuff that they did not tell this person about how they feel about them. That is a position of dominance that is kind of not, like, it's a little coercive because the person did not give consent to be your partner in that way, and they don't know that you're moving in that direction. And like, this can sound so bad because we all have to find romance by sort of romancing someone, having a little strategy. But so much parasocial stuff is going on right now, and there's so much trouble just trying to even figure out what that means. What does that mean? You know what I mean? And I'm saying it because everybody has to like grapple with these themes, because we're going into a world where people are going to meet online, and they have to know what it means to ground that stuff. And so we have to know what it is to moderate our hopes and dreams with somebody who is not tangibly there. And that means really developing much stronger lines of communication than we currently have, because the models of communication we have are like, we were in the job place together, we're in the school together, you know, we're living neighbors from each other, we have to be in the laundromat together. There's all kinds of negotiation that happens that keeps our desires in check and keeps us in reality and grounded, that don't happen at the level of the internet. And so like, it's important for us to do justice to ourselves about like what it means to like not be in a loneliness epidemic, at how to create life with another. And a big part of that is having a communication with the self that says, this is not rejection. I should have gone about this a little bit differently, and that's okay. Next time I will, and next time it'll be meant for me, because I will have the lesson, and in perfect timing that right person will come with that Four of Wands. I learned what not to do, and so that I can be available for what I'm meant to do, and I'm going to have faith that what I'm meant to do will be in the ripeness of my maturity, because I did this work with the Queen of Coins, establishing myself. When someone rejects you, it is not about you. It's about them. It's not at you. It's in relationship to what is available and what they have. And you don't have to take that personally. And you can let them off the hook. And if you do feel misled, then that's a conversation that you need to have. And if you don't feel like you don't have if you can't have the conversation, then maybe it wasn't where you thought it was. And so be happy, haters hate that. So pew, pew, pew to all your haters and keep on winning. This is your job, is to keep on winning. Your job is to be this temperance, this alchemy between the inner world and the outer world. What is available, what's not available. And to build from that point. Because it's all, that is finding that alchemy within you, finding that strength within you, finding that inspiration within you, right under that Queen of Coins. Listen and learn to let go of anything and everything, because just like a handful of Jell-O, if you hold anything too tight, it will cause an explosion of messy goo and all fall apart. Just be happy. And it's not about other people. And I know that sounds horrible, because other people can mistreat you. Other people can trick you. Other people can say, hey, here, I'm here to build a life with you. I want to give you something. I want to give you my life. People can very much express that, and then it aborts because that was not true and they were lying, or it miscarries because it's not what you thought it was. Accepting that with learn to let go is also accepting what path is for you and the person that is for you. It's not just accepting that something is not for you, it's accepting that something else is for you. And so when you come at this with a much more open curiosity, when you're wondering about what someone has to offer, instead of scheming to have someone be on offer, then you sort of have this opportunity where you start from a place that's much more distanced from the highs and lows of acquisition, you know, from the highs of lows of like, I did it, you know, we had a good conversation, or we had a good time, or we're having a good time and we're moving in that direction. Like this is where like things build and they build as they build. And if the tower falls, the tower falls. It's an open-handed approach. I'd like to be in your life, but I'm going to hold this with an open hand. I don't know exactly where you are, and so I'm not going to move a step forward until you signal that I can move a step forward. And if I think I'm going in a direction that is heart-based, but you're in a direction that is mind-based, I'm going to communicate where my heart is or my heart is not, so that I don't get ahead of this, so that I don't start having things that are not true interfere with what is on offer. As much as someone has to give in the way of love. Because love is not just like they love you or they don't love you. Love is how much love do they have to give you, and what does it look like, and how are you meant to use that or not use that in terms of forming your own sense of what is available and what is not available. So there are hard lessons here, with the bottom of the deck energy being like, you'll find that special someone in your life who will make you realize why it didn't work out with anyone else. For the first time, you will always feel oh so safe, understood, loved, and like someone always has your back. And one day when you find out that person is you, we're getting there. I know that's a hard lesson. I know it hurts. I know we cry rivers over this. You'll really be on a whole new level and be living in a whole real fairy tale. I now pronounce you untouchable. You may now live happily ever after with the only person that will be there with you to the end, you. How is that something that doesn't feel like a curse? It's not. It doesn't mean you are untouchable. It means that what is touchable about you, what you have on offer to be touched, is something that someone touches with desire, willingness, because they want to. And that is the love that is justice. That is the partnership that is justice. And what it means to have that relationship where you are wanted and you are loved means you've already established that you want your life, and you want who you are, and you want what it means to express yourself, and you get joy out of doing that, and you get fulfillment out of doing that, and the life that you created for yourself is the fairy tale that you have been dreaming about, because you are capable of creating that life for yourself. Now that that is established, Queen of Coins, you are fertile to create with somebody else. Before that is established, there is an immaturity and a lack of fertility, because you first have to have the baby of creating your living space. Then you have to have the baby of creating what you want to do in order to make a living. Then you have to have the baby of creating what you want in the way of the type of person you want to be and the type of people that you want to have in your life as different avenues of support. Never one person is all your support. Once those things are established, that's because you have been fertile with what you have been given in the way of inspiration and what is available to you in the way of inspiration. Now there is a fertility that is about other people. And so no, you haven't just been rejected and rejected and rejected and rejected and there's nothing you can do. You're still maturing. And so we're going to leave that there, because I know that that's a hard message. There's an injustice. I hate myself. I hate my life. They don't want me. No one, like all the stuff, the disappointment. Things are weird right now. Things are weird right now. And the best thing that you can do for yourself is know that there are people who are available at the Six of Cups level. Hold relationships with an open hand while people figure out who they are and what they want. Page of Pentacles. What is the opportunity here? Hold it with an open hand. It'll avail itself to you at its readiness, at its maturity level, with what it, one step at a time. What is on offer? Six of Cups. Soulmates, but from a very elementary place, where that soulmate may take the form of a friend. That soulmate may take the form of a business partnership. That soulmate may take the form of somebody who's there for you for a season and then they're not available anymore. That soulmate may take the role of somebody who is like a sister or a brother in the fact that they share life with you, and they're part of a support system because it has been established and it feels good. And that takes time. That actually takes a lot of time, and it ebbs and flows a lot. And there's a lot of testing that goes into that. You know, that Page of Pentacles says there's an opportunity here, but that Six of Cups says it hasn't grown up yet. And it's in the phase of hope. And that hope is a really important ingredient, but it's not the quickening of life. And now we share this whole responsibility of what we made. And so if it's not that you're rejected with that Seven of Cups, It's just that you might not actually be seeing what's on offer to you, and you might be pinning all of your high hopes on the highest ideal of what you want in proximity to some kind of power related to romance rescue. The World card, but there's an opportunity here. There's an opportunity for a whole new chapter where you put your effort in this Queen of Coins position. And if you get to that Nine of Pentacles place where you're like, I've got everything but love, tell me whether or not you're still unhappy with what you've got. Because something tells me that you won't be. Because the Nine of Pentacles is you earned the stability that you feel that you stand on, and nothing can take it away from you. That's a different place to be looking for love from. And that's some heights, and that's some depths too that you can offer. And so this new chapter related to like what you have on offer, temperance, man, we got to work on it. You got work to do, and it's okay. Don't feel bad about it at the start. You will be elevated in this healing. You've got temperance 2 times here, and you've got the World card. That's great. That means new chapter. That means you are finished with the old way of relating, finished with the old way of pining, finished with romance rescues, finished with savior doctrines, and you are moving into what it means to save yourself, to save your own life. Because you can. And when you do so, that's a fertility. When you make your own life and you make it a place of inspiration where you can't stop being creative, and your very conversation is enlightening. Now there's something that you have to really co-create with. And so that Star card is that elevation. That elevation comes with healing. That healing is where you establish yourself in a place where you are a beacon, where you can see the whole picture, where you have a sense of what you are consenting to and you're not consenting to, where you have a real sense of your worth so you don't give yourself away accidentally, because that happens real easy all the time. So this new world, this new experience of yourself, this temperance, you're going to work really hard to try and take dominion over your life with that Queen of Coins, to establish yourself in your own right, because that's what it takes to have the kind of fertility that will sustain a new life that you create with somebody else. And that has to be an equal yoke justice with the Four of Wands, which means that they've created that for themselves too. Otherwise, they're just going to be siphoning what your strengths, like, you're not going to do it. It's not going to work. It'll abort, or it'll miscarriage. And so your guys are saying, one day you're going to have this relationship with another because you have that relationship already with yourself. One day you're going to feel like you're empowered with that agency because you've already established that you are empowered with your agency, because you don't invest in things that have nothing to do with you. You don't invest in people that haven't given you a full green light. You don't invest in things before the time has arrived where that fertility really makes sense. And you can get really close before something aborts, but that has nothing to do with you. That's just a redirect. That's just the divine stepping in and saying, what's for you is for you. What's not for you is not for you. Do not waste time with persuading yourself and others. Do not waste time with stories of powerlessness. If you didn't get that, you can't get anything. None of that is true. You are fertile. That is a fact. If you feel like you're not, because you haven't had experiences of bringing things to term, you start with you. Bring your home to term. Bring your ideas to term. Bring your ambition to term. That's going to be that Queen of Coins position. And so that's a hard message for Eros and the womb, because Eros and the womb, this whole section here, this is not a section talking about is romantic love available to you, because it is. But this is a section that's saying, what romantic thing, how is that romantic thing going to take form? Because the womb is a very serious form of romantic love. The womb is like you're going to build a life with someone, you're going to make a child with someone, you might even make a career with someone. But if you've been scheming on some romance rescue and somebody else is like thinking that this is an episodic, point of discovery and then departure, and that communication hasn't had, then somebody's going to be repelled. And then you're going to be feeling this kind of a way that it's rejection when it's not. And so I leave that information with you because this is hard stuff, but also it's empowering. Because when you stop short and you say, wait a minute, I've been doing this for a long time. It hasn't gotten me anywhere, but I really do want love. And so if I think that it's not good enough to just be me with my Queen of Pentacles status, riches, high regard, position, access to all sorts of resources, creative capacity that is without end nearly, if that's somehow like not anything and I'm just going to give up because the only thing I need is somebody else to make my alchemy right, then this is going to keep on happening. Then that fertility is going to keep on being a problem. Then there is the doctrine of salvation that is coming into every relationship that is throwing the capacity for what it means to actually relate. And so we have to shed these things. And so we have to do it together. Nobody's exempt. I'm in this boat with all of you. I make mistakes all the time with stuff like this too. So let's take a minute. Let's even support each other in what it means to kind of face the music that, hey, if that wasn't working, if that's not going to work, doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. I don't want to do that. I actually want a life that I'm proud of. I want an alchemy that feels good to be and feels right. I want to take advantage of every opportunity. I want justice in what it is to receive and give love. And I want the right partnership, which means I'm going to stop investing in a formula that foils me every time because it's taking me away from myself and what it means to authentically connect. And so that's where we're going to leave it. These messages are hard, but they're substantive and they get us somewhere. And so with that, I send you off with love. Okay, pile number 2. So we had the pile number 1 is, I think, difficult because it talks about like the toll that disappointment takes. Hope denied makes the heart sick. And there is some reckoning around, wait a minute, like fertility starts with like being able, like being mature enough to, I think even in biology, it's like, when can you take a step on your own? And when can you absolutely not take a step on your own? And that's not a judgment call. It's just knowing like where you are in the journey. But the second part of that is the mirror card for pile number 2. And I do think these go in order. These are chaptery. For pile number 2, the mirror speaks of self-reflection, self-actualization, and to make this a situation where we can bring some love into it, because I'm looking at 8 of Pentacles, King of Swords, which is like, there's no, where's the water? To bring some love into what it is to fall in love with yourself. I think this whole section is going to be about falling in love with yourself and like having a romance with life. Because this mountain and the Father card, again, we're talking about like the wounded divine masculine aspect of ourselves. What does the wounded divine masculine aspects of ourselves look like? I wanted to get it and I didn't get it. You know, I wanted that and it didn't let me, and therefore vengeance, right? It's this, that's like a toxic version of it. But like agency in its mature, in its ascended form, and its divine masculine ascended form is about gaining mastery over desire and what it means to manifest tangibly and grounded into the world and the earth that you stand in. It's like becoming the magician who can go from like saying a spell to like materializing a spoon. You know, speaking life into the ground, and then it inspires like growth. Cultivating a garden so that things can sprout through in a way that maximizes potential. That's a healthy divine masculine aspect. An unhealthy, like, or toxic, healthy and unhealthy is like a little bit, but like a toxic version of the divine masculine is dominion. I'm going to take dominance. I'm going to be dominant. I did all of this and so I deserve that. I wanted it this much and so you should give it to me that way. This is how much I loved you and now you have to love me. You know what I mean? Like it's this, it's dominance and submission in a way that dominance and submission is not pleasurable. And that distinction is important. Because dominance and submission is a really big part of nature. And we're going to talk about it in the next section. But it's a big part of nature. I hope to talk about it in the next section. It seems really important. That is to be accounted for. Because it exists and nature is our template and we have to understand what that means. There's a demented dominance and submission, which has nothing to do with natural purpose and everything to do with an artificial hierarchy, and that perverts absolutely everything, as it should turn out. But there is a dominance and submission that is built into the mating dance and the mating game, and it doesn't have to do with like what sex assignment you were born with. It has to do with where you park your energy in the process of like wanting something and getting it and then keeping it, right? So we talked about fertility in the last section, and it's like, how do you be receptive to like an inspiration that brings new life? And then how do you have that reception be something that fosters and nurtures that life? Well, first you have to have your life pretty well established on its own before you're fostering new life. Otherwise it's constant capsizing, and it's like a never ending, you know, battle to get enough when it seems like you're not strong enough to hold what is required of you. So that's why being receptive is not just about desire. It's also about readiness. Otherwise, it's not going to stick. It's not going to hold. And yeah, but the part that is the divine masculine influence, where we're like, who am I and what does it mean to be me? And how do I operate through that, what it means to be you? And how do you get the things that you want? Now, the things that you want are in relationship to like what you're able to do. So again, it's not just about wanting it, and it's not just about going after it. It's about like the energetic impetus behind being able to foster it and knowing what you actually want and not being fooled by what you think you want, which is a never-ending thing. So the way that we avoid all of that is we get really clear on who we are. And so that's this part of the reading, the work you have to do on getting a sense of who you are that is like crystal clear, that is centered. Because you don't want to center romantic love, because that's centering a type of like power outside of yourself in order to make you happy. You have to start with the fertility that is you already established, that you can sustain your own life and feed your own life and nourish yourself, which is like you can hold new life and actually like bring it to term and then foster it. And that is true of like partnership in that too. And so like first you got to establish you, and you got to bring some love into it, and you need it to be romance. Because that's what you're looking for. You're looking for romance. Maybe you're looking for it in another person. Maybe you're looking for it in a belief system. But the indoctrination with patriarchy, the indoctrination with the powers outside of yourself, which is patriarchy's mantle and shadow. And we're talking about the father and the mountain, right? Some of this stuff is so like heavy sometimes. I get like a little bit dizzy. Let me just get some cards before I keep going. Because this is the part where you discover who you are. And so how do you discover who you are? And how do you make that romantic? And how do you fall in love with who you are? How do you fall in love with who you are? You fall in love with who you are based on what you fall in love with in other people, and who you fall in love with in the way of like how that reflects through you in a unique way. And so when you're in adolescence, the archetypes, you decide what archetypes you are going to work with. When you're an adolescent, you decide what archetypes you're going to become. And so in a sense, you're deciding what gods to serve. So in adolescence, do we decide to serve the god of perfection and go for like that, like the golden child of the narcissist, of capitalist, like preppy kind of a look? You know, not to be like disparaging, but I'm kind of speaking about it spiritually. Like, are you aligning with the aesthetics of wealth and everything that means? And so that's going to be a Saturnian, that's going to be a certain type of archetype that you're working with. Or are you aligning with like Aquarius, and you are absolutely testing limits, bringing in innovation, like thinking about these things differently, you know, sort of like from another planet on like counterculture? Are you like looking at Uranus and revolution, and there's the rebel? We decide what gods we're going to work with, what gods we're going to serve in adolescence, more or less. But there's a whole array of things that are sold to us in story form. So when you think about who are you going to become, who are you going to fall in love with, how are you going to make romance out of your life? The first thing you need to think about is like, what are the gods I'm working with? What are the archetypes that I'm working with? What archetype am I looking to embody? And who do I know, or what do I know that is inspiring me to want to be close to that, to want to become that, to want to be a part of that? Because that's going to tell you what gods want to work with you. And so the way that we, in the last section with the pile number 1, talked about like limerence, those are the gods calling you. When you have a crush on a rock star or like a movie star or whatever it is, that like even like a friend that is unavailable for one reason or another, you're looking at the archetype that they represent and wanting to be a part of that story. That's the whole technology there, is wanting to be a part of that story. What does it mean when you want to be a part of another person's story? You got to fix that. That's pile number 1, fix that. Pile number 2 is what is it to embody the story that you want to be in and to live into that story. My voice is going. Let's have some more water. To live into that story is to first craft it. Is to first think about what calls you about the environment that you're in. Who do you want to become? Who do you want to become? And we talk about that a lot, but in terms of self-empowerment and loving yourself and romanticizing your life, not only do you need to figure out what story you are in, because you are in a story, there's a lifespan, it starts, it ends, and there's lots of stuff that goes on, and you get to kind of craft the experience, and you are having the perspective and you are driving that perspective. It's one lifetime in this perspective, meaning that you're on stage. You're having a theatrical experience of like an eternal consciousness, and that's because you're in the tactile, the touch, the do, the feel. You are creative at a ground level of where you are not only in the movie, you're making the movie as you're in the movie. And it is a movie because your experience is unique to you in your perspective, which is one facet of consciousness. And that one facet of consciousness has a very strong experience and a very strong self and a very strong everything. But at the end of the day, you retire this lifetime in the same way that you arrived at it, mysteriously. And so when we think about how you're going to enter into this, like, who am I? What does it mean to be alive? Instead of like, I'm going to grow up and I'm going to have this career and I'm going to be this person, I'm going to wear this clothes and they're going to love me like this. That's like a really short side. Like, that's taking a very short view on what it is to live a lifetime. How many of you look around at your life and you're like, what the F was I doing? What the hell is going on? Well, think about who you are and how creative you are and the kind of crazy stuff that you think about and the experience that you could craft if you were like from an eternal space and you wanted to have a perspective. Like, wouldn't that part of you like be like, okay, it's only a lifespan. I'm gonna go like this crazy, I'm gonna do this crazy thing. Of course you regret it, but rather than like sit there angry at yourself, like thinking to yourself, like, why did I write myself into this story? Because this is a lifespan. Even if you want to look at it from a secular frame, you get a narrative arc and things that happen within it and ways in which that makes meaning and then expresses through you. It's all story structure at the nuts and the bolts. And so when you want to gain power, when you want to talk about alchemy and magic, and when you want to actually think about things from a perspective that is, I can bring the supernatural into the natural, because what are we doing? We're doing something like that. When you want to become part of that, I can bring the supernatural into the natural thing, then what you're talking about is gaming the experience so that you are influencing the story, that you are authoring the story, that you are sitting there and being like, I know I'm in this scene. What's the character I'm going to play? What experience do I want to have? How do I want to use my array of gifts to express, and like what do I want to take in the way of, here's the place I find myself and this is what I can do with it. And so now you're taking like an active participation role, and you're driving your car, you're driving your inspiration, and you're driving your experience. Now, are you going to have all the control and everybody's going to fall in love with you, and in the next scene they love you, you know what I mean? Like, and then the next scene they look at you like that and then they realize that they loved you all along. Like, are you doing it with other people? Because that's going to fail every time. Because you're cheapening the experience when you don't let it be a choose your own adventure where there's a narrative arc where other energies come in and refine your voice and your experience by either giving way or putting up boundaries, like sorting themselves in or out. Now it's like a sharp turn. Like, what am I going to do? Like, didn't expect that. Like, rush of emotion. Wow. Like, adventure. You're in this lifespan for the experience. So like, what about this experience do you want to make better? And how, and what is available to you, and how can you do it from like, you're in this movie, how can you be good with it? Like, how can you make it a character and a movie that you want to be in? Reinvention. Sometimes it means like, I didn't like the script, I shouldn't have done this was short-sighted. Okay, well, what are you going to bring that's supernatural? What are you going to bring that's going to be your innovation, your conversation, your persistence with who you want to be and how you want to express. This fresh start, though, is about not holding on to an image or an identity like your life depends on it, and your entire personality is about convincing people to see it the way that you've crafted it. And so we have some work to do on like romance in life is creating a life that is romantic, that you are in love with yourself, the character that you're playing, that the script that you're in is one where it's substantive and it's not some bubblegum crap, and you're like, okay, I can work with this, I can make this beautiful, I can channel through this. I can bring divine energies. I can bring the supernatural into the natural. But it's not about having a fix. And it's not about tyranny in terms of aborting or miscarrying relationships based on not allowing them to even become the thing that they want to become, because you've got a different idea. And so when we think about this fresh start, it's about not only are you making the story and participating in it, but you also let the story play itself out with you. Hold it with your hand open, because you're on the roller coaster. You're not directing the script, but you're writing into the story your parts. So it's like kind of confusing, but I'm going to keep on going because it's what it is. Persistence says that like, you know, there's disappointment in like having to accept fresh starts, but those are the parameters. You know, the divine masculine aspect is not only wanting something and having agency, but having the ability to turn like to actually access, take wisdom and use it to work with knowledge in order to create an infrastructure where you you get really good at the structure, you get really good at the boundaries, you get really good at the limits, you get really good at the rituals, and then you don't need them, essentially. And so that's where we have the persistence and the reinvention kind of on a loop. Because the learning process is like, it doesn't become mastery until you've gained mastery. That means there's work that you put in. So the fresh start here is about, like, you first have to get really good at driving the car over the turns. You know, being able to work with the terrain and getting good at working with the terrain instead of arguing with the terrain. Getting good at understanding that, you know, the movie has like something really valuable to offer you, and that you're here for this experience, and that you want to get certain things out of it. And that's the part where you have to think about the limitations and then figure out what it means to adapt, that's evolve, around them, and transform the story that you're within, reinvention. But you have to persist and not fight with every aspect of what's going on. And so when you fall in love with your life and you fall in love with the opportunities in your life, that's also being able to reinvent yourself over and over and over and over and over again, and persist in reinventing yourself over and over and over and over again, because that's how you maximize the experience. If you get stuck at an identity that is saying, this is the thing that happened to me, that is my story, that is who I am, and you never get to reinvent yourself and become something that's totally different, then your relationships can become something where the mirroring just goes flat. There's a flat soda effect. And so I want you to work with, like, developing a way of looking at yourself in the mirror and being like, yes, absolutely. And where you look at yourself in the mirror and you say, no, absolutely not. That we think about the distance between the two places where, and what it means to be in the game, because you're in a game. One lifetime, there's goals, there's stumbling blocks. There is a way in which this is a phase of development in your eternal self that is kind of a game, and you're playing this character once. Queen of Pentacles here. This is the queen of the material world. So you're gaining mastery over the material world. So how do you gain mastery over the material world? That is the goal of this section on self-actualization and voice instead of identity, which is like, again, it's a malleable thing. Like with this Page of Swords, like the voice, the message is malleable. It's not a point of dogma and agreement, or, you know, this is how we sort ourselves. Like there's a call here to do the work, to figure out who you are and what your message is, what message you bring, and establish yourself. And that is a process of reinventing yourself over and over and over again. High Priestess, Ten of Pentacles, Six of Swords. It's a beautiful spread. But the Moon card is like, the Moon card is where you're not sure what to invest in and what to value by way of direction, relationship, opportunities, because it's shapeshifty. It's like, is that true? Is that illusion? And so it's really hard to move out of pile number one section where you're talking about like, is it an opportunity? Do they love me? Is this right? Is this wrong? Do I invest? Do I hope? Do I hold back? Do I need? Do I express? Like, that's this Moon card here. And with the High Priestess, again, you know, we are talking about the mirror. Everybody who you look at is providing for you. It's a projection. Like, honest, it's a projection. So with silence here with the High Priestess and the Ten of Pentacles, the value, and the Six of Swords going from a place of like confusion and I don't know who I am and I don't know what I want to I know what I'm worth, to like, I'm going to have a center of gravity here, connected to spirit, connected to source, channeling ability. There's also a silence in it. It's not like you're broadcasting who you are so that you can get a certain kind of like recognition or validation. That external validation is not what you build your image for. If you think that the image that you were building is to get an outcome with the way that people see you, there's an exchange there going, instead of this is who I am and this is the value of it, and I will decide what is revealed and what is withheld. And there's power in that. There's a magnetism in that. There's voice in that even though the High Priestess is silent, we have the messenger here. And so there's work crafting your message. And that work crafting your message has to do with, who are you here on this earth? What are the traits that you have that you love? What are the things about yourself that you do not like? Why are those things that you do not like there? How do you work with those things that you don't like and transform them? Magic, that's holding power. That's your first experimentation with fertility, is taking what you have in the way of traits that you were born with and allowing them to create something from within you, unexpected, based on what you are experiencing and making meaning of. And making of, creating of. What does the house that you're in tell you about yourself? What do the decorations say? Or do they reflect you? Do your clothing items reflect like an expression that you have cultivated? And if so, what does it say about you? How do you explain that? How do you think about style? How do you think about, you're playing a role. This is the most incredible art project that you will ever be a part of. And here's where a lot of us are like, our voice, our art, our artists. If the art project that you are a part of that is creating a life for yourself, Queen of Pentacles, that sustains you and supports you, where you are not subject, you are not submissive to circumstance, because that's what the Queen of Pentacles represents, not submissive to circumstance, because of a level of establishment and maturity wherein there is nothing that she does not have resource for in order to achieve her goals. And so like this is also a place of complete and total self-possession. I possess myself. I know what I want. I'm not going to catch every inspiration and have it like lead me in circles that are away from myself. I'm going to know what I want and build toward it and tangibly say, this is what I own. This is what I adorn myself with. This is the home that I've created. And this is the work that I do. And this is how I have established myself in my own kingdom over my own life. It is dominance, dominion over your life, to the extent where you're not subject to the whims of another. That was pile number 1 to a certain extent. And so with this Page of Swords, 8 of Pentacles, the work on your messaging to yourself. What story are you in? You need a message. I'm in this story about this. What are you going to do with it? I'm going to tell people this. Why? Because I love it. Because I love it. I love doing that. How are you going to tell them? I'm going to tell them in the way that I love the most. And when that person sings like that, and when that person makes that poetry, like I love it the most. So I want to find my way to say it that way the most. And then when I'm saying the most in my way, that's different than theirs, but I took the inspiration and see, look at the seeds I planted, look at this fertile soil and look at this fertile ground. And like, now I have like all of these dreams and I want to make all of these arts with it. And then I want to show people the arts with it. So that's what you're supposed to be doing to tend your life. That's a very different experience than like, does so-and-so like me? Do they love me? And like having stories about like identity with value. And so like, here's where like the mirror comes in, because it's like, what is the garden that you're planting and tending to? What does it look like with the moon? Do you not know? I don't know who I am. I don't know what I'm making. I know what inspires me, but then it changes. And then I get scared because it's not like, it's like a fish and I can't grab it and I can't hold it and I can't make it mine. And that Temperance card with the moon says like, this is a time of creating an alchemy that you get to have for eternity, a perspective that you get to have for eternity, even a self that you get to have for an eternity. You get to have this self for eternity. You get to use this self for eternity. You get all of the lessons from this lifetime for an eternity. And you get to put them with other things that you have achieved in the way of lifetimes and learning. And you get to build something new from all of that information. And you get to be a big part of a purpose that has to do with specialties that you didn't even know that you're a part of, that you're expanding consciousness on. That's what building a self is. Make the picture bigger in your head, not whether they like you or not. Make the picture bigger and you'll find bigger satisfaction. If your satisfaction comes from praise or you know, that's it. Like the praise of others, the accolades of others. You made the grade, you have high scores. You know, you did the milestones and now like you should get the credit and everybody should approve. All that externalizing. And that's the distraction that you want to avoid when it comes to finding yourself. Yourself isn't out there. You can find examples of things that remind you of traits and put you in contact with archetypes that you want to channel and embody through your own voice. That's critical, or else you are just going to spin out in circles. So through your own voice is only hard because agency and the Father, like what does it mean to even know the moon card, what is in the mirror, when it's also silent and shady here with the High Priestess. That Ten of Pentacles is I know my worth because I know what's funny and I know what's not funny, and I value humor. I know, and I cultivate it in myself, and I cultivate my own sense of humor because it's a whole combination of all those other things that I found funny, and something new comes of it. Everybody can sing, everyone can sing, and people can sing really well, and people can sing like each other. But somebody who comes in with a new song, that's tapping into the spirituality and the source of soul. High Priestess. And that's where the value is. Ten of Pentacles. That is a never-ending fountain of wisdom, a never-ending fountain of charisma, a never-ending fountain of poetry, a never-ending fountain of talent. That's called power. If you are attracted to power, that's what this entire world has conditioned you to be. But you need to be attracted to your own power and developing your own power, because that's where actual power is. It's not in proximity to power, which is what hierarchy teaches you. And so that Moon card is getting clear on your own power. Getting clear on your own power is like, what story am I in, and what's the character that I'm playing? And what's the superpower of that character, and how do I develop it in myself? Temperance. That's how you're going to get clear with the Moon card, and that's how you're going to get your glow up here with the Queen of Wands. And so the Mirror card is really, it's a simple formula of like, your message is the script. What character are you playing? I'm a supporting role because I love the talent and the genius. That's not it, right? I guarantee it, because that's going to get you only so far. Or you're the supporting role because you are a warrior of justice. That's only going to get you so far. Or you're the main character, but you don't want to be the main character, and you hate your life because all of these people, you know what I mean? Like it's all these things, with the Page of Cups being about like, is this an offer of love or is this not an offer of love? Five of Pentacles, am I allowed in or am I not allowed in? Am I belonging? Am I not belonging? Is what I have on offer a value, or is it not on value? All of that measuring, all of that evaluating, all of that strategy is getting you away from yourself and who you are in the mirror, not toward yourself. It's distracting you away from who you really are and what you're really here to do, not toward yourself. So Ace of Pentacles is the path that's meant to be yours. How do you find out the path that is meant to be yours? Well, the first thing you do is you look around and you see, what setting is the movie I'm in? Where was I born to? Who was I born to? What are the stories I have to tell about that? What is the knowledge, the wisdom? What do the experiences have for me? If you don't remember, then when did you start behaving away from what it was to experience? Because experiences are memorable. Behaving in a way to avoid being hurt is Stockholm Syndrome, and we go into like fugue forgetting. And if it's been a lot of fugue forgetting, that's okay. Welcome to the party. It's most of us. But now you have to start experiencing. And so you have to actually heal that rift. And so that Ace of Pentacles is like, you actually have to start with life on life's terms. What hasn't happened. And that's the paintbrushes, and those are the paints. Now, are you going to fight with the paints and the paintbrushes and be like, I wanted an oboe? I wanted to play an instrument. I don't want to be a painter. Like, I think that the guitar is way better than my life. And so someone should just take this canvas and throw it out. This is where we want to stop the comparisons. This is where we want to look in the mirror for what is in front of us, what is available for us, what do we have in the way of talents, how can we use those talents to tap into channeling with those talents. You get to channeling by practicing until you get to an expertise where it comes naturally, where you don't even have to try, because you're just plugged right in, and then the source moves through you. So you first have to learn the techniques. Ace of Pentacles, there's perseverance, but you're not left out of life. If you have to persevere, you're not left out of life if you're not there automatically, and you can't just claim to fame that you have that skill automatically. You recognize that you want it, that the archetype appeals to you, but there's work to be done to embody it, and every God demands that you do work to embody them. Otherwise, there's no power to be had, and you're trying to get that power from what? People? No. So that Ace of Pentacles is your path, and the Knight of Cups is where you offer yourself love. You fall in love with the path that you're on. You fall in love with the opportunity that path offers you for transformation in any way that you want to act towards achieving transformation. That's, I want to learn magic. That's how you do it. I don't want it to be like this. I want it to be like that. I have to channel in supernatural abilities of transformation through persistence, discipline, prayer, ritual. Like, nobody wants to do somatic exercises, but we do them, right? And then we have a calm, and I've loved myself, I've nurtured myself. And so this bottom of the deck energy, which is this Page of Pentacles, the opportunity that is in front of you to discover yourself, is the one that your life has on offer. And that's a very valuable life. You have a very valuable life. You have a very valuable life. You are of value. Find a picture, a baby picture. Look at the baby picture and tell me that's not a valuable life. Okay, it's established at birth. It is. If you are in the material world, if you make it into the material world as a viable being, then that value to the material world is then established in your purpose, and you get a chance to play out a song, a movie, a story. You get to live into an experience. You get to become an expert on types of experience and translating that. You get to become an expert on working with the alchemy of transforming situations into new situations. And there's a bevy of tools that are there. And so, like, what do you take to the movie and the script? Where's the creativity in your life? Start there. It's not about making something and people like applause. I need applause because I worked so hard. No one's. The better you are, the less applause you're going to get. First of all, And secondly, like, the fact of the matter is you have a path here to discover that is yours, that doesn't look like something besides what your path is. And you get a lot of tools. You get the tools of, like, this is the path you're on, right? And then you get the tools of all of the archetypes that are going to work with you. So that's everything that you like in other people that you want to embody, because that's an example. Like, you see anger in somebody else and you recognize you have anger in you, and you know that it exists outside of you. That's a God. You want to bring that into the expression of your art. Like, you just have to learn comedy. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of stuff there that is like, where what you're attracted to is also what you are meant to become. What you eat is what you are. And so when we work on, like, who we are, when we think about, I fell in love with them, everything about them is perfect. No, you fell in love with your projection of them, which means that there is something about them that you want to have in your life, as a part of your life, that you want to embody. Not you want to possess the person and they're going to love you the most. Like, that's never it. I mean, I don't mean to be mean about it, but, like, we are at a moment in time, such a time as this. Things are changing. We need to be tough about the divine masculine aspect of ourselves. Needs to be healed from within if we want to see it healed without. And we can't be a lopsided, unbalanced thing. And so we need to know that our agency is messed up when we are falling in love at the level of, like, and then they said this to me and I think I'm going to do that. Instead of, like, I'm talking to you, like, what's happening here? And, like, and there's a whole process about how that isn't aggressive, and that you're not taking the romance out of it by having informed consent. And that, in fact, in building in an informed consent is moving away from domination and submission that is, like, disordered with acquisitions and holdings, and moving into a type of consent communication that it's a mating dance in and of itself. And it's not just about mating, it's also about partnerships and friendships, like doing creative projects. Like, when we are dreaming by ourselves about someone else making the life that we want, and not dreaming by ourselves the life that we want to make for ourselves, we shortchange our entire message, and we cater a message around an object of desire instead of catering a message on, like, purpose. And so, like, this is where we have this mirror here, and, like, what are you going to offer yourself in the way of belonging? Not what is other people going to belong. Like, it's not what are other people or opportunities going to offer you in the way of belonging. It's what are you going to offer yourself in the way of belonging to your life, and your life belongs to you. How are you going to like understand that the only true rejection you can suffer is when you reject your own life, and when you reject your own self, because that's what you are with 24/7, and that's what you're making meaning with, and that's what the lens you're seeing the world through, and that's also what you're projecting, to a certain extent. And so knowing your path and, like, loving your path is, like, the first step to loving yourself. Is loving your path, is embracing the story that you're in, because there's a purpose in it and there's a reason for it. And if you're running away from it, you're running away from your purpose at the same time. So you can't look for your purpose outside of yourself. You have to look at your purpose right in the moment that you're in the hour that you're in the day that you're in the thing that you're in, with the people that you're in. And there's a lot of negotiating and thinking about, like, who you are in that scene, who you are in this story. But every story is an opportunity, and every twist and turn of a story is an opportunity, and none of it is against you. None of it is at you. And if you're taking somebody else's position personally, you're trying to manipulate a game instead of just be in it and experience it on its own terms. Experience people on their own terms. Experience life on its own terms. Experience nature on its own terms. A distorted divine masculine is trying to control things and make them fit in their hopes and their dreams in the way that on their terms, be seen on their terms, be loved on their terms, instead of dancing and co-creating with things on their terms. And so it's a relationship with nature where you have to watch the trying to control when desire is involved. And Instead, point your desire at the desire to become the person that you want to be, and to look a certain way, and to act a certain way, and to have a kind of experience. And that's a romantic thing. So let's get one more card here. And then we can be, I think, done with this section. Because falling in love with yourself and romanticizing your life is the answer to like being very appealing. I mean, like, the truth of the matter is like, it's almost scary how many people will like see that as like, want to put you in the role of object of desire if you feel like you don't have opportunities to be desired, and no one sees you the way that you want to show. Like, there's this need to work on your message if no one can hear you. And there's reasons why it's hard to do that, but that's your job. You got one lifetime to make sure that the things that you want to say are said, and that the way that they are received is going to help you find what it means to be received. And like, that's not the whole journey. The journey is first finding out what your voice is and what it means to speak. Before you fail or succeed at the level of being heard, figure out what it is to speak. What is it to be heard correctly? That's a process. First, you have to know your own voice. Then you have to know how your voice sounds. Then you have to know what it means to like be artistic and creative with the way that that voice sounds, and who it's aimed at in the first place, and who it's meant to discourage. Your voice is as much about who it's meant to call in as it is about who it's meant to discourage. People looking to do fantasy football with their lives don't like this channel, because like, it's not about assigning other people like, enemies or adoring and like, how are you gonna win the next award of like whatever. This is much more than that. This is about like thinking about your lifespan as being a very brief opportunity to stand on a platform and speak from your experience, and have that speech reach people not in terms of an audience, but in terms of connections and growth and expansion and the richness of life and relating and relationship to not just what you invent and create, but who you meet in that process. It's not about a platform that gives you like icon status, because that is there's a perversion in that. It's a platform that you're like, I'm speaking about my favorite things and people love my favorite like personality, that like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a family. In a way, it's your chosen family, and then it's building with that chosen family, and acceptance and rejection based on like not whether or not like those people come under the domination of what you think you deserve, but whether or not those people are meant to be there, and whether you've gotten out of the way of people who have sorted themselves out and into alignment with those who very much want to be with you. And now that's like an alchemy of working with people who want to be with you and have made that clear. But the first thing you have to do is make yourself clear so that people can even hear you. And that you aren't speaking in facades of missed opportunities and desperation, because we do that when we don't take the time to value our own lives and know that that valuable life has a valuable message in it, and that we work very, very hard on making that clear for ourselves so that we can persist in reinvention with what it means to communicate it until we have successfully arrived at mastery over that passion to speak and be heard, or to sing and be heard, or to bake and be experienced through what we made, like and I'm talking about conversations. This is an alchemy that every opportunity that you have with what it means to relate gives you. And that messaging comes from attempts to make that clear and make yourself understood, and failures to make yourself understood in ways in which we now reinvent with a persistence based on how we want to be heard, but also what it means to take in information and grow and change, and not give up at Four of Cups at like, the sadness that can come when someone doesn't want to participate in what we're trying to build. Because we shouldn't be making a tower or a building on somebody else's participation anyway. And that's one of the hardest lessons we get in terms of individuation and self-actualization. But the power behind the divine masculine aspect of God that is getting things done and making them happen is trial and error. It's not win-win-win domination control. It's, I wanted this, I didn't get it, and so now that adaptation becomes my agency's effectiveness, and the willingness to adapt with fresh start over and over and over again. It's not about a distorted energy of like forcing people to live like you dream they should. And so the throw positivity around like it's confetti. If you litter negativity everywhere you go, you're going to have a lot of trash talked about you. So go gather up those positivity bubbles and unleash those bad vibes all over the freaking place. Just throw copious amounts of happiness all over, all the time. Seriously throw it in everyone's face. Become the crusader of happiness. Keep the good vibes alive. You're responsible to the ingredient that you bring to the potluck. You're responsible for the flavor you put in the soup. And that's where it's not just about like everybody's going to appreciate you and see you because you put on a show that like really put in the effort to make sure that you like said the hard things and now they're going to get the response that you want. That's a hope. That's what we start with. That's the piece of clay. You know what I mean? When it comes to developing that individualized perspective, voice, and that connection to the divine that gives it the power and the wisdom that comes not from knowledge that you gather elsewhere, but from like a divine inspiration, that is really what mastery is. Mastery is you're connected with the divine in the process of discovery of self so many times and the effort to express that you finally hit like the pay dirt of that fountain of your own inspiration and your own like mastery around inspiration, which is more than just gathering the things that you like. It's making stuff with them and knowing what your own voice is separate from what you like and you don't like. And so with positivity being a big part of the alchemy of what you create, like positivity is clarity moving towards a future position of expansion. That's the truth. You can't be positive all the time because then you just have a white light with no borders and no shapes. And so like a picture, a sketch is made with lines. It's made with contrast. It's made with boundaries. It's made of life on life's terms. It's made of the story as it's given to you, not as you demand it. And then the way that we have positivity around that is we're not fighting with it. We're not asking, we're not constantly in stories that we're telling about near drowning incidences. Instead, we've learned to swim and we're going to swim from here and there. And then like, that's a different experience of life. And certainly levels of maturity require levels of guidance. And sometimes we need guidance in terms of how to swim, but that's a very different relationship to like what it is to know yourself. Sometimes there's a learning curve. Sometimes there's a getting mastery. And so it's not a negative experience when you have to deal with opposition or you have to do strength training. It's part of finding the 10 of Pentacles in the journey from the choppy waters into the smooth waters. That's a journey in knowing how to use the sailboat. And so that's kind of where we have to like learn to let go of anything and everything, because like a handful of Jell-O, if you hold anything too tight, it will cause an explosion of messy goo and all fall apart. Stop holding your self-development like identity. And do you agree with me or do you not agree with me? Just develop into expression and have that expression speak for itself. And whatever people want to do with it, that's their prerogative. You do want to, we're going to go into the next section. We're going to talk about what it is to be around others and like a proper ecosystem of relating where you're not constantly explaining your defense about who you are and what you want and what you don't want, but you're stepping out of that because that's dogmatic in its own way, and you're stepping into the power of Queen of Pentacles, mastery over expression, Queen of Wands, mastery over your passion, Page of Swords, clear on your messaging. It is a work in progress at all times. What you think now will change, but that King of Swords is constantly being self-possessed and the center of your own gravity and the center of your own ambition. And so, yeah, we want to do things with other people, but there's a way to do that with this being on your path. What is for you is meant for you. What is not meant for you is not meant for you. Availing yourselves of like help. Like there's this thing that we're going to do with positivity, where positivity is moving toward a greater clarity, a greater strength, a greater empowerment. That's what we aim our attention at. We don't swim in pools powerlessness and seeking like a life raft in somebody else. We never do that. We never seek a life raft in another person. That doesn't mean that we can't be helpless sometimes and need it, but there's a difference between helpless sometimes and needing it, because that's a whole different flavor than this is habitual. And so we're gonna think about what it means to develop yourself. Like, what's the movie you want to be in? What's the character you want to play? What does it mean to embody the experiences that your life has set for you with like the type of experience you want to have? So if you want to be in a romantic comedy, learn comedy. You know what I mean? Learn to take everything lighter. Learn to make a joke out of stuff that would otherwise, crush you. because your life is romantic and there's lots of comedy, and it's really easy for you to fall in love from that perspective. If you want your life to be an action adventure movie, get up at 6 o'clock in the morning every morning and run, because part of that fitness of discipline, you know, like there's so many genres that our life's experiences lend themselves to. And then there are ones that are not, where we have to think about like, oh, I'm in the drama. Oh, I got this drama. How are you going to bring like transcendental, heart-opening movement and meaning and soundtrack to that drama? Because we have all seen dramas that have been way better than any romantic comedy or action adventure could ever be. And so to cut yourself off of the past with that drama and say like, you know, everybody else gets a wedding, or everybody else gets like, we all do stuff like that, where we like look at other people's stories and say like, I just needed a romantic comedy, and instead, you know, and that's the richness of your story is lost when you're thinking about somebody else or something else. And so that mirror is like, what's the story I'm in and how am I going to make it good? And I just looked up and saw 444. Stoke your inner flame. What are you interested in? What are the archetypes you want to embody? Use your words consciously. What's your messaging in all of this? What is the messaging in your experience of life? What is the messaging you bring to other people when you show up for conversation? Let animals be your guide. Let there be enchantment, enchanted unity, and your potential is right. So I want you to play with this, you know, making the priority, and instead of centering romance, which is like centering, like romance, rescue, and salvation, it's the same doctrine. So if you've gotten away from a high control religion and now you find yourself looking for a romance rescue, it's still something outside of yourself is going to save you and bring you into the harmony with the united divinity of love, that the experience of being loved is for you to have, because of the romance is going to rescue like the annihilation of an otherwise hard life. That's not a fertile place to grow things. So we're going to start to do fertile growing of things, which happens here with the mirror. When you start to look at the archetypes around you, what are the stories that you want to be in? What are the archetypes that you want to operate through you? What is the expression that you bring through that harmony? Like, it's a story structure. Call it anything else, and you don't have to. You can just be in the movie that is the drama with no story structure. But that's not going to be for everyone. And so you have to get clear that you really want that. And so, like, there's lots of things that go into, like, crafting your life that is really, really important. And it's a positive experience. It's not a negative experience. And if it's a negative experience, then that's a different story. And that's going to create a certain kind of environment, right? And so I kind of think the fresh start thing, you know, with the moon, if you don't see a path forward, try something else. You got to let things go, though. You're working with this alchemy of who you're going to become. Everything is an opportunity to learn and work with that, but it's all about that individuation, sense of self. You are the main character in your movie. What is your movie about? What is the dialogue that you offer? And it's not like you have to be like a wordsmith to have good dialogue, because you know that that's not true. You've heard good dialogue come out of the mouth of like an animated pig, you know what I mean? Like, and I mean that like to say, like, you know, what's that? I saw Charlotte's Web, you know what I mean? Like, this is not so insurmountable based on what you think you have and you don't have. This is, what do you want to create, and how do you begin to play with that? Mastery is needed. You're not going to sing like Mariah Carey just because you want to. You're going to have to practice a lot with persistence, and you're going to have to fail a lot with reinvention. And that's the only way you're going to find out your own voice is not Mariah Carey. It's something different, but you still have to play with it. And so that's like getting a sense of self here is like, some of it's your limitations. There are limits on who you are. There are limits on the features that you were born with and the talents that you were born with, and how that intersects with what you want is when you're confronting those limits against what? Creating strengths or leaning into other strengths. And so like, it's a good message here, you know, in terms of like, what does it mean to very basically fall in love with yourself? You stop hating your life, period. And you stop hating what life gave you, period. And you stop hating the opportunities that you didn't get, period. And you start investing in what is available, and you make something magnificent with it. You take the ingredients that you have and you invent a meal that only you can make, that has a fragrance and a taste that only that you can provide, and it is permanent, and it is a permanent expansion in consciousness, and it is a permanent aspect of the divine that exists forever, that you will always have available to you. And so that's where we're going to leave it. That's like we're going to go to part number 3 right now, but that's what it is to invest in yourself and put yourself at the center and be self-possessed. And And that's also the secret to having the magnetism, connecting to like really deep channeling, and being in divine conversation with creating yourself through the archetypes of the gods in the architecture that you've been given by the story that you live through. So pile number 2, let's go to pile number 3. Okay, pile number 3, this is getting long. You know, this is going to be the next 2 Wednesdays. I'm doing like readings in lieu of like Wednesday meetings right now because I just need to recalibrate around like what's being created and how it's being created. But yeah, this is going to be 2 Wednesdays in a row. This is literally probably like a 2-hour situation, if not more. With the Queen of Swords and the 3 of Pentacles and the Anima Mundi, this is the community part, you know, and the community part is very simple. And I don't even think I need to go into it for very long, because this is like, what is community and what is not community? What is community and what is not community? Is community a classroom where everybody gets a reward and everybody gets the same amount of attention, and every little plant is watered the same amount, and everything gets a chance to be its strongest, bestest self? Because that's not what Anima Mundi is, and that's not what reality is. And so, you know, there are realities that we place on reality that are false realities that are bad and evil and no good. And then there are realities that we place on reality that are false realities that are idyllic and hopeful. And like, this is where dogma and religion can kind of be a weapon in a certain kind of way. Because life on life's terms, first of all, it takes a much broader look at what life is. And both pile number 1 and pile number 2, where you're taking life on life's terms. You're playing with the paintbrushes that are before you. And that can be really hard and really miserable if you think that you are just doomed to have a crappy experience while you watch everybody else have a good one. Because you can value what's a good experience and what a bad experience is. And if you can't find a way to make valuable the experience that you're having, like, this is something that we can kind of despair if we think that us is a special only one, right? Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, your ancestors had a much harder time than you ever did. Every single time. You want to talk about ancestor worship and you're crying, and you have a right to cry and you have a right to feel pain, and they support you and they love you. But they were like, they you know, that there is something about the development of humanity, and like when we honor our ancestors, when we really honor our ancestors, like there is this very important humility there. When we honor the gods and goddesses, there's this very important humility there. And where that comes in is that you may hate your job and you may hate the slave like driving like capitalist society that you're a part of, and the wage slavery that you have to endure, but you're talking to an ancestor who was an actual slave. Okay, that's a fact. Okay, and so when we think about gratitude for our life and our experiences, there are people in your lineage that were born with the traits that you were born with that didn't get to live past 12 ever, as a reality of what that condition was in former like experiences up until this point. You know, the time is a whole and you're within a whole, but every lifetime is an expansion in consciousness. So what we started with, and what's very important, when everybody says this, it's out there, you can find it, right? So it's important to think about this as a very practical working principle. You're in a body that's one body, and inside that body is organs, cells, mitochondria. You are one and you are many. I like the example of AI when it comes to consciousness, because this makes a lot of sense to me. I need a sip of water. My voice is going. I've been talking for a lot of time. I have to work on paring these messages down so that they're more digestible. But my point is, AI as a concept is really good because it is simultaneously one mind. It is a technology. It is a thing. It is also individual AIs that are created by people who make them little mirrors so that they can see themselves in another way. And it's totally like superficial. It's not deep. It's very light magic at this point. It's still kind of powerful in its own way. But when you understand your own consciousness, and this is a breakthrough for consciousness that's right around the corner, then you understand that like the lived experience is the temporary interface, like conditioning moment of like you are this tool for a moment with that person in that time period, and these stories and these experiences. Like you're one aspect of yourself in the time that you were born and the circumstances that you were born. But then you die and you join all of the potential and everything that has come before as and it is aware of itself as one thing. It knows itself as one. And that is essentially like the gods. And then God is the architect of all of the archetypes, that which is part of inspiring new life that then sentience fosters, and it creates something that is unique every single time. That's anima mundi. And so when you take the God's eye view of who you are and what you are, this life is just an experience. It's a user interface experience. That is the superpower. That's the cheat code to looking at life in the right way. You want to look at life in the right way, not stakes so high. They love you, they don't love you. You get this, you don't get that. Because I know we fall into that. We all do. It's like painful, and I think it seems a little bit mean for me to like be like get over it a little bit. But the point is, I know from personal experience that cheat code of I'm not going to put all of this personal high stakes value, lack of value, like love me, don't love me. Like this is a user interface experience of the lifetime that I'm in. And I'm going to pour as much love and care and devotion into it as I possibly can. But I'm also going to understand that what's for me is for me, what's not for me is not for me. I'm working on resonance, I'm working with gnosis, I'm plugged into the divine. And so that is a individual experience that you can have if your individual experience isn't some stories of condemnation based on the only chance that you have to be you is this time period, with this body, and this circumstance. You get to be you every single time you think about wanting to be a new you. You get to go out of this life and decide you want to have a different experience, and decide you want to experience a life that you didn't get to experience, and go into that life. Because that's the nature of what a creator is. And as an extension from that creator, very practically speaking, this is not all that there is. And so what is anima mundi and what is community? Understanding that you see somebody who's acting in a way that you don't want to, like, you see somebody acting like a criminal, right? And you're like, that's stupid. You can hate them and you can be like, they're threatening me. And they might be threatening you, and you might have to make tactical decisions to make sure that they don't have access to threaten you. But that's just you in a different life. That's just you with a different user interface experience. You're not better or worse. You have the perspective that you were given based on these circumstances and the gifts that you have, that you were born with. And somebody who has a different set of circumstances, a different set of like user interface, like different programming, is going to have a different perspective. And so it's still just you in a less maturity, you in a different situation every single time. So like vengeance is not what we live for, because legislating morality, forcing somebody to treat you the way you want to be treated, you know, the tyranny of like all the stuff that has to do with like otherizing, you know, the experience of the quality of life, the other thing, the other person, the other opportunity, the other structure, the outside of you. Yes, you negotiate with nature, but you also have inner nature to make all of the moves with in terms of how you want to express and experience. And so Anima Mundi says like, yeah, you're where you are, but it's just this, it's not all there is. It really, truly is not. And the experience that you're having is temporary. And there's balance and strength and vulnerability and harvest in that. You know, this alchemy of you section, when we think about the Three of Pentacles, building the cathedral, building the worldview, building the material world experience. You get to be a perspective and a person to build the material world experience. And the material world experience usually evolves because of what you do with it. And the collective unconscious becomes more intelligent with your expansion. And so you have a very important role in being a perspective that expands the whole, and being a perspective that then goes into making new perspectives. So what I'm saying here is take a bigger perspective on what it means to like work with people and be around people. They're just you at a different phase. You want to be like that, they're just you at a different phase. You gotta do what they had to do to become them. You have to do some version of that in order to get that mastery. And that's going to be hard because it was hard for them. And knowing that is not condemning that they're better than you and you're worse than them. It's knowing that anything that you see that is more maturity, they had to work hard for it. You're going to have to work hard for what you want in the way of that level of maturity. It's okay. That's the whole point of this exercise with the life that you have. Somebody is immature and you don't want to deal with them, you don't want to deal with that, you don't want to have to like hold their hand. They're not bad, naughty and evil. They're just in a different place. They're in a place where you are not. You know, that person who is not attracted to you in the way that you're attracted to them, they're just a version of you that you were when you weren't attracted to that other person. When you stop taking it so personally as referendums against your value, when this external stuff doesn't line up with your internal expectation, then you can really start to build something with belief. Belief is saying this is not all there is, and there's an endless fountain of inspiration available to me. I just have to get my head out of any kind of persecution complex that comes from a life of comparison. And there is persecution because we are in comparison. It's hierarchical nonsense, but you're going to transcend that. You're going to see the game for what it is. Have the cheat code on reality that is like, I can take this on any terms I want. I can experience anything I want with this. It's entirely temporary. And I can change things based on my perspective, and I can call in archetypal energies in ascended form that are like clarity towards that expansion and hope. But when you're calling in to work with you, has to want to be in the energy that you're in. And so you're going to get a quality in terms of your guidance that is in relationship to the alchemy that you are creating as the soup that you are. You are a vibe, you are a soup, you are a taste, you are an energy. What are the ingredients there that you are actively making it a nourishing experience for yourself, and therefore, by extension, a nourishing experience for those who encounter you? That's all you got to do. You don't have to do anything else. That's it. That's the whole tamale. That's the whole game. That's it. Because all of that nourishing creates new life. It creates new opportunities. But the next act of your alchemy is kind of just understanding that this is not so high stakes. It's really not. And what you have to work with is what you have to work with, but you're building something for the whole. You're not just building something for yourself. Your quality of mind, what you're creating in the way of consciousness, expands, and you become a part of that expanded consciousness. And that's a boon for everything and everyone. And what you are like in whole is something that doesn't have limitations. So if you find yourself in limitations you don't want, you put yourself in limitations to grow a superpower. And you are an infinite creature, which means that you're obviously doing things and learning things and expanding forever. That the expansion is forever. And so that always means that there's a learning curve forever. And if we just hate that things aren't the same and the castle and the dream and the perfect, we really talk ourselves out of what it means to experience the magnitude of the majesty of the whole. And if we hate everyone and we can't forgive people because they'd never let us have, which is what we do, or because they hurt us so much that we can't, which is a lot of what happens when we give people more power than they should have. Because people can take power from you for a moment, but they can't keep that power from you forever. The moment that you bring yourself out of that powerless situation and into a new situation, you're only still giving that power away if you still give that situation supremacy over your capacity for any kind of positive change. Learn to let go is the bottom of the deck of anything and everything, because like a handful of jello, if you hold anything too tight, it will cause an explosion of messy goo and all fall apart. It's not the end of the story, but it is telling you something. There's a harvest in the life that you're in and the experience that you're having, and you're meant to value that and fall in love with that. And in valuing and falling in love with that, you're meant to create with the inspiration that you're given from that meaning and that experience. Little sprouts, little things grow. You create a fertile environment. You create a garden. The garden sustains you. Now you can work with what it means to play with the architecture of building into communal spaces, right? But this is kind of the job here. And so the Anima Mundi is about having a real broad view on rejection and acceptance. Nobody's rejecting you. That's just somebody in a different place than you. Okay. Disappointing, yes. Crushing, no. And so put up a fight for what you love. I'm going to read these two. Some things in life are worth fighting for. People, relationships, jobs, yourself. There are a lot of things that don't deserve your energy, but don't become so jaded by the doo-doo around you that you lose sight of things that do matter, because some people and some things in your life really are worth going to the underworld and back for. Some people are worth giving up all your energy to and putting up one heck of a fight for. So just don't forget to step up and care when it matters. This is an interesting thing with the divine masculine energy and agency. When it comes to people sorting themselves in and out, like that you don't have any control over. But when it comes to like caring about the people that are meant to be in your life, Valuing your life first is that's the most important. You value your life and you value who you are. Once you've finished with that, now you can value the people around you. You can value them for what they offer at any given moment. And if you want to have more of what they have on offer, you have to be able to sort of think about this anima mundi and say, I don't know where they are and I don't know where I am, but I know where I want to be and I know what I'd like to do and I know what I'd like to have. And so this isn't about controlling them or their perception of me or how much attention they do or do not give me, because that's a big stumbling block right there. But it is about deciding what it means for me to value this person and show this person that I value them, because I do want them around. So that's where the agency is not just about reacting to external events as they inform you, but also taking that divine masculine active perspective and agency perspective on what it does mean to engage with an object of desire. Because now we have creativity and crafting, that is that adaptability that we talked about in the last reading, along the lines of how do we want to build a cathedral, an experience for people to relate to, and the cathedral is a holy place. It's a place where things are sacred. It's a place where people are sacred. It's a place in where connection of the divine and to each other is sacred. So how do we build that? How do you have that with those that you value? It's going to be about taking the information on the information's terms and doing with it what you can do with it, but because you are what you do, not what you say. Yeah, you are what you do, not what you say you will do. Get out of bed, do the things, seize the freaking day. Make your life beautiful and romantic and experience it that way, and you'll be experienced that way. That's it. With the Four of Swords, if it's not, you got to heal, you got to create. This is fertile soil for you to start to work with. If it's Four of Swords, healing, and you are Four of Pentacles, tired of the deprivation and not having enough and feeling the need for intimacy, but not being granted that intimacy with others, you still have to work on what it means to work with what you have available to you, because that Four of Pentacles leads to this Ten of Pentacles. But the anima mundi is knowing that wealth is what you're connected to in the way of the vastness of it all. And that is what spirituality is. That is what connecting with the gods are. That is what connecting with God is. And connecting with the gods within and connecting with the gods without that's all that we do when we do a spiritual practice. We create that. We create that container. We create that richness. We have a romance in our life with what it is to relate to the mysteries and the origin in each other, in ourselves, in the world. And we take dominion over our personal experience, not the external circumstances in the way that we want them to be, because you are what you do, not what you say you will do. So it's not about having the right story and having the right talking points and having the right ideas. That's not what it is. It's about your energy. Your energy. It's completely your energy. People feel what's going on, and it might take a minute with the digital world. We're not in proximity in the way we used to be. And so it's a lot more confusing whether or not you've been granted access to someone's energy or not, because there is that distance. And so there's so much projection there. But that's that Four of Pentacles. I know that I don't want what I'm dealing with to be the final say. There's a lot of work I have to do with where I'm at and with this healing process and where I want to be with this arrival in terms of that self-worth. Because that self-worth is also connected to this worth of the divine, the all. God is the most extended version of yourself, in a sense, because think about the whole, right? The version of yourself that is infinite, that has already lived all of the lives, is going to be the architect of the archetypes. So encountering those archetypes and the way that you make sense of spirituality and the way that you make sense of the underworld is a part and a facet of your expression and your art form. And your belief really informs that. That's part of creating into this Three of Pentacles. But that Queen of Swords is not doing it from a heartless place or from a powerless place. It's about balance and strength and vulnerability. I want to create this life with others. I want to be inspired. I want to do things with others. I want to be welcome in. But first, you have to be a good roommate. And that's going to be about tending your own house, your own space, and your own garden. And that's about playing a role in the story that you want to be playing and being received, not in terms of the stories that you carry about the wounds that were inflicted, or the chances that were there or dashed, or the opportunities that were or were not. but kind of what you did with the story and how you made it interesting, and how you emancipated yourself from that way of thinking and that way of feeling, and you adapted yourself over and over again, because that's what you leave this world and enter the spiritual arena with. When you say, hey, I lived this life, look what I did, and everybody goes, whoa, my perspective was expanded by your consciousness. Thank you for living that life and giving us this whole new arena of way of working with ideas and theories, and giving us this whole new sense of ourselves as a whole. You become friends with the gods when you enlighten them, and you enlighten them by living your experience and making meaning of it. And then they enlighten you by inspiring you with their experiences, and their experiences are connected to a whole other experiences. So this is magical Anima Mundi. That's romance with life and creation, not like shutting down because you didn't get the story that was prescribed in the rom-com. It's much bigger than that. And so this third part of the reading, and I'm going to keep this short because it's like so long. This third part of the reading is take dominion over your life along the line of your own attitudes, and then take action, because your vibes are going to be the thing that access denied has to do with maturity. Maturity is not what you say and having the right argument and the right ideas. It's what someone is going to pick up on energetically with this Page of Cups, where your eyes are bigger than your plate. Or your stomach. Your eyes are bigger than your stomach. And so the Two of Cups here is about, being clear with yourself about the Anima Mundi of it all. Where are you with this Nine of Wands and putting it down? Where are you with maximizing the Four of Pentacles? It's a small perspective. It's a little vantage point, and it seems like it's not enough. So where are you with working towards that Ten of Pentacles and being understood and communicating what you need to communicate to yourself first? And that's a lot of work, but it's also where the vulnerability is safest to become strength. And so I'm just gonna get, I always feel like a little compulsed to pull cards from every deck on here. But this last pile with the Anima Mundi is like, the alchemy of you is this lifetime and what you do with it in terms of perspective and artistic flair and creativity and innovation. And there's no wrong or right. There's just the opportunity in it. Your next act of alchemy. That's the Emperor. And the harvest, though, is in the process of joyful expectation that there's inner beauty here with this Four of Pentacles, and that it translates to a value that you are yet to discover. And when you do, that's going to communicate. And if it doesn't communicate immediately at first, you try again. And that's what makes your voice strong. That's what strengthens your voice. That's what refines your voice. And so all of those try again, that's not against you, it's not at you. It's an opportunity to say, here's everything I've gathered, let's try it again, let's start over again. Because that's just Anima Mundi. It's not the beginning and the end of all that I am. Page of Wands, inspiration, and Wheel of Fortune. Let your inspiration drive you into new arenas of life over and over again, because that is who you are and what you are at an eternal level. And so stepping into that is the authentic experience. So that's all of them. That's going to be long. I'm scared about how long this is going to be. I'm going to go put this up. I'll talk to you guys again soon.